Hello all and welcome to the live Q&A for Chapter 1 of Black Teeth, Burnt Out. I am your host, Kate, and I am here with our amazing cast and storyteller to talk all things Season 1 and maybe even Season 2. If I could have everyone go around and introduce yourselves and who you play on the podcast, starting with Sakaya, because you're first on my Zoom call.
Hello, everyone. I am Sakaya. I go by she, her pronouns, and I am the storyteller for Black Teeth. And that's all I do.
All right. Jill, you're next.
Hello, I am Jill. I use she, they pronouns, and I play Rachel Marcus, our woman in black.
All right, Emma.
Hi, I am Emma, or Hamalu on the internet, and I was playing Bethan Merrick, who's she, her. And she is the gutter witch, is the class, but we just call her the witch in the woods.
Emily.
That's me. Hi, I'm Emily. I use she, they pronouns, and I play Tiff, the werewolf who is a mess, and we love her.
Okay, sorry. And Zoe.
Hello, my name is Zoe. I go by she, her, and I play Rianne Davies, the face.
Yes. And also I use any and all pronouns. Forgot to introduce my pronouns. So, Chapter 1 of Black Teeth takes place on the Hlim Peninsula during the record-breaking heat wave of 1976. Rachel Marcus is the first woman to join the Order of St. Bede. Scrutinized by those who are critical of such a move, she's determined to prove herself and live up to her mentor, who we got to learn a little bit about this season. She is aided by Beth America Hedge Witch from a long line of witches who have always tended to the local community. Rianne Davy is a charismatic factional go-between who has many contacts with whom to broker deals. And Tiffany Vaguely, a reluctant rogue werewolf with a traumatic past. We have quite a few amazing questions to get to with our wonderful cast and storyteller. And remember, chat, we're taking live questions as well. So if you have any questions for our cast or our storyteller, just let us know in the chat and I will be monitoring that. But I would like to start first with our storyteller. Just to get us started off, Sakaya, what inspired you to set the story in Wales on this specific peninsula?
I have wanted to set any kind of story in Wales for quite a long time now. I've lived a large part of my life here. I'm the kind of the traditions, the folklore, the landscape is just very, very inspiring to me. I think specifically I went for the Hlim Peninsula because it is rooted in a lot of very old sort of mythology, history. A lot of the Mabinogion is set potentially because there are doubts over some of it, but in local areas. And it's just there. It's just there, so I can send my cast like photos of things, and it's really nice when you're telling a story that you can actually go and walk and be a part of, because it gives you ideas. And
That's awesome. So any of the places that they go in the story, are those real places that like are on the peninsula, like the oh my gosh, what is it called? Capel Salem?
yep, you can Google that if you look at Pwllheli, if you can spell it, and look for Capel Salem the church. That is it's a genuine Methodist church. It was empty for years. There is like the British Sewing Bee or all those kind of like programming things. There was a ceramics one, I think. I don't know if any of you know it, but one of the hosts of that was a Welsh artist, and they bought Capel Salem, and it's now, I think, like a ceramics art place. But it's a genuine Methodist church that has been there since
That's
mid 1800s.
That's awesome. um So I also have a question just to start off with our cast, and whoever would like to can go first. I'm just curious, what inspired each of your characters?
I can go first. Um, Rachel was not my first character idea. Originally, my first idea was very different. I wanted to play a very punk changeling that was searching for their family um, and like trying to find her place in the world. And I ended up going with Rachel because it fit the vibe of what we were building and what like the story that we wanted to tell together a bit more. And it was just, I think it meshed with the group, and I think it was the right decision, even though I really still want to play my punk changeling. But I'm very glad with how it turned out.
Side story.
I
Yeah.
in terms of how like I created her, it was a lot of getting inspiration through just starting out with like the basics because I was like, I know it's a Men in Black thing, which is how it's listed in the book. So
Mhm.
I like went in with like the religious imagery on like Pinterest and stuff, and I just scrolled through and I started making a character board. And then as it started suggesting more things to me, I was like, it triggered more ideas, which is how I got her connection to her mentor, and that he's no longer around. And it just a lot of that stuff I tried to turn it up to the max because I have a problem of creating too mild of a character, and so I wanted to take Rachel and make her intense in certain
Mhm.
aspects.
I definitely think that you can
Obsessed.
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it makes a more interesting character, and that's something I struggled with and I have been wanting to fix.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I definitely think that you succeeded with that. Like
Thank you.
Rachel has such a like strong energy, and like even though I do think that if we can skip ahead a little bit, the stalker episode was quite a shock, at least for me. I think that that is just a testament to how like intense character Rachel she's so serious,
Hmm.
and then you're like, you weren't always this way, huh?
Yeah, like she comes off as a very like intense, like serious character, but that intensity isn't just in her seriousness, and like she kind of, I guess, comes off as very like tight-laced at first. Um,
Mhm.
but that intensity also comes out in her being a little aggressive towards other people and her interests as well. Like she throws herself 100% into something, and it's not ever like half-assed. She's just, if she's interested in something, she goes full force.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay.
I can go next. I knowing where it was being set and the era that it was being set in, I knew I wanted to take the Gutter Witch character option for this, and really wanted to dig down into the roots of what hedge witchery and being a wise woman was in British culture for many hundreds of years, um, especially given the sort of political and social change that was happening in the 70s, and what womanhood and the liberation of womanhood as well, to just kind of play around with that a little bit with somebody who is very much charged with that divine feminine energy and the connecting down to the roots and the Mother Earth kind of uh, aspects. So I went with that option for her, and kind of tried to tap into that with what she was capable of. And then we selected the location for where she lived and put it somewhere that was isolated, but very much the local community on the peninsula know that they can go to her. She can create poultices or you know, like whatever lotions and potions you need, but
Mm-hmm.
also a lot of the times they were people that you would go to for other troubles, just for some spiritual guidance in a way that wasn't necessarily religious, and then they would deliver babies and things like that. So I kind of, yeah, went with those
Yeah.
vibes for little Bethan. um
Was the aspect of water something that you started out with the idea, or was that something that was kind of discovered as the plot went on?
um its importance was discovered as the plot went on, because I didn't know as a player, and it was kind of revealed in really cool ways. I knew that for me, like understanding the way that the elemental things worked with that sort of spiritual side of things, that water is very much tying to your emotions, emotional aspects. It is healing, it is calming, and that's the kind of energy that I wanted to give her. So I knew when I wanted to place her birthday and what zodiac sign she had. You know, like
Uh-huh.
I knew that much. I was putting in what I knew about those things into her. In terms of the significance it ended up having, was very cleverly crafted by our storyteller. So.
Yeah. Sakaya, just as a follow-up to that. So Bethan's birthday, that did it start off with knowing essentially that she would be a Cancer, and then because it's Cancer, right?
Mm.
At the end of
Yeah.
yeah. Um did it start were you was it a happy accident the day? Did you help Emma to like decide on the day because it's so important with, the 28s
Mm-hmm.
and that coming up? Like, was that a happy accident or was it planned?
No, the entire plot structure was built around Bethan's birthday. Once I knew what it was,
Mm-hmm.
the birthday came first. I had no say in it at all. The only thing I knew was that I wanted the entire season to take place within the window of the heat wave as it's officially recorded historically.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked them, well, I said, we're going to be running for 10 seasons, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Fund us.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be really good if you had birthdays because I'm sure they'll come up in various different seasons and storylines, but also because we're running over such a huge period of time, we kind of need to know how old you are in any one
Mm-hmm.
season.
Right. Uh-huh.
So I did kind of say this story is taking place in the summer of '76. If one of you wants to have a birthday in that story, that's when it is. So Emma came with the 28th, and looking at the historical records, I could see that that was 5 days after the heatwave officially starts. So I'm like, okay, we're going to start the story there.
Mm-hmm.
And there is actually, when Rian is talking to Gethan, he subtly nods at that because I think he says that he hasn't seen Ronson since
Yeah.
the date that the heatwave actually started.
Oh, right.
He doesn't mention dates, so it's very, very subtle. But I kind of wanted to show that the things that are going on took place completely like between those. So when we finish the story on the 27th, the reason we finished the story on the 27th of August is because that is the official day that the heatwave ended. That's when the first rains came.
Yeah.
And it was perfect. When I looked at the dates, I was like, that means they have to get there before
Yeah.
the final killing. So that was just luck.
I think I don't
Wow.
even think it's like everything fit into place so perfectly without us necessarily meaning to, and that is like,
That's
something else
magic.
was
That's
at
when
play
you
there.
get
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Oh, that's really, really neat. That's
Mhm.
awesome. Okay.
I think it's just because that's what actually happened in 1976.
Yeah.
And we're just
Totally.
channeling the story so that it's finally ready to be heard.
Mhm.
And since I'm already talking, I'll go. I Tiff, I I wanted to play some kind of supernatural being, some kind of monster. And I don't know, I pretty quickly was just like, what if werewolf? And then I was obsessed with that idea and it just took off. Because I don't know, I like characters who are dealing with the internal like conflict of like, I want to be this way, but my nature kind of wants me to be another way. So like just the concept of a reluctant werewolf really resonated with me. My original idea for Tip was like way darker. Like she was like gonna be like low key like serial killer of like sexual predators was like the concept that I was going with, and then that was
Mhm.
like both too intense and not how werewolves worked, and so like
Although,
in our session 0, well, not entirely not how
Lone
werewolves work, but
werewolves. Mhm.
yeah, it just I much prefer the tiff that we ended up with through the workshopping. of like through our session 0 and through just like talking about how our characters were interrelated and like how that worked out. I really prefer. Um, also, I not just like from a story perspective, but just from a headspace of being in Tiff's headspace, I enjoy the like. I don't know. I feel like that would have been a little more intense, and it's already intense enough. But yeah, I love that juxtaposition, and then you know, sort of without my without my intending for Tiff to end up as a trans metaphor, half of my characters end up as trans metaphors without me meaning them to be. And just like Tiff was very, very different before she was a werewolf. Like literally like she was like cheerleader sized and now she's the way that she is. And I just like that feeling of not feeling right in your body. It just like I like try to lean into that and that I don't know. That's Tiff.
I
That's where
definitely
she came from.
I definitely think that that comes across in how, you know, I feel like you get that thing where it's like you're playing a very tall character who is like not trying to be so intimidating, so she comes across very like, oh, we're gonna figure this out, very like protective and willing to use her size, but only when, I mean, I think evidenced by we don't even get to see the werewolf until the very end. You know, I think that it seems like she's very reluctant to kind of rely on that unless she really needs to, um, which I
Yeah,
think
definitely at this
served
point
to be
in the
really
story.
cool. Yeah, I think that ended up being really, really neat. Um,
I just think she's neat.
She's very neat. Very neat. I'm lost. So Rianne is very special to me in a lot of ways. I love her and I'm also terrified of her.
Yeah.
The idea for Rianne, much like Jill, I was on Pinterest. I was looking at things. I wasn't really going in with a super clear idea to begin with. And I wanted to allow space for Sakai to tell this amazing story and help, you know, kind of mold Rianne a little bit. Obviously, there was the bones of her. I had the idea of how I wanted her to be, and what I put into her, but I'm really happy with the way things are going.
Uh-huh.
She she's both things that I am myself in this life, and she is also things that I wish I was. It's a very it's a loving mixture of things, you know. I don't know how else to describe her really. But
Mhm.
that's why I think she's very special to me. And like I said, I'm kind of scared of her in a way. Um, but yeah, like there's so many different parts of me that I didn't even realize I had put into her. And now
Mhm.
listening back and realizing everything that's happened, I'm like, oh, okay, I see, I see. And like I said, then there's things that how I wish I was or how I want to be. You know, it's one of those ones.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm quite proud of Rianne and how far she's come. So.
Yeah, I mean, even, you know, it really struck me because there's no um Emily was telling me that there's no actual in Liminal, there's no way for a face character to do combat. Is that correct? Like there's just
I mean, it's hard. I don't have any like physical attributes.
right.
I am completely like mental and social.
Right, but it paid off so well in the fight against the devil. I mean, Rianne just really like turned the tide on that quite literally. um and it was so impressive just to see. I don't know, I was very proud of Rianne in that moment.
Me too.
I love the episode with yeah. I love the episode actually hearing her get to be in her element with all of the different contacts she had and getting the information on Bronson and her interaction with, oh my gosh, the moment with the reporter that Rianne clocked right away was the reporter was like,
Yeah.
I know game. I
Yeah.
see you. I do what you do, but
Mhm.
better.
Yeah, it's been interesting for me doing the no combat and also no magic. I'm not used to that in an RPG setting. So
Yeah.
yeah, this whole thing has been it's been great. Like I said, it's very special. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's oh,
I wouldn't
go
mind
ahead.
adding actually that I think Rianne is an extremely brave decision for Zoe, because
Yeah.
we all bring a bit of ourselves to our characters. But I've role played with Zoe for quite some time and know her well, and it's quite a raw one. But also to go into a role playing game with a character that doesn't have any magic or any fighting abilities. Rianne is just a person who relies on her wits, and I think
Mhm.
that's a really hard character to play. And I think it's
I
yeah,
remember your reaction actually when we were doing the character creation, and your reaction to me saying that I wanted to be a face. You were like, "Oh." But yeah, like I said, I'm thrilled with how it's turned out, and it's no small part in Sakai's wonderful storytelling. So yeah, group effort for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like we have a really nice mix of, we have kind of a spectrum of magical. You have, Rihanna on one end who doesn't have, has a lot of information, but not a lot of magic. Well, no magic. Oh my gosh, no magical capability. You have kind of like Rachel and Bethan sort of in the middle, where Rachel has a lot of lore and some combat, but like not really any, but knowledge about magic. And then you have Hedge Witch, who has like an intrinsic knowledge of magic and is like connected to the land and the different realms and stuff. And then you have Tiff, who is not not knowledgeable, but somehow the most supernatural of them
Yeah.
all.
It's almost like I
And
don't
so
know if sorry. I don't know if
no,
any
no,
of you
no,
have
go
played
ahead.
Mass Effect, but like Mass Effect's quite good at like you've got like three stats. You've got like combat and biotic and technical. And so when you're picking your team, you pick it so that you're balancing the three things out so that you get a nice even spread of the three types of character. And I think we definitely balance those things well, like you say. So.
Yeah, and like even you can see it come together kind of at the end. I'm obsessed with the everyone being an aspect of something. Loki, Heike. um and I think that that just is one of those, another amazing magical thing that just, what we all love about TTRPGs is sometimes in a campaign things just happen, and like you don't really make them. It's not all like, there are certainly things that are planned, but then there are magical things the dice gods just say hello, or like a character just, I know for me sometimes with character creation I'll have like a baby concept and then they sprout like Athena from my head fully formed, and I'm like, where did you, okay. I guess that's who you are now.
That's how the stalking thing from Rachel came to be a thing. Like that, I don't know where
Yeah.
that idea came from. It was just like, bam, I'm here. So like that's not like me putting myself into the character, but that is just an idea that I had, and I was like, it's intense, it's insane, I love it. I'm gonna do it.
And it's so very interesting to see a character, like, because I feel like a lot of times in campaigns you'll see it's one of the magical parts of like seeing a character start some way and you get to see their transformation over the arc. But it's also sometimes interesting to see a character who has had such a change in their background, and like, but we get to meet them kind of like halfway or even like sort of toward the end, and it's like, oh, I had no idea that this was a part of your, like, okay, we're dropping Rachel lore now. Cool.
There's a reason she's like the rogue-ish character, like the closest to a rogue that our group has.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love how we go from like not just for the like obviously there are lore reasons why Rachel has a gun, but just like a character personality reasons we go from like why the fuck does she have a gun to of course she has a fucking gun. Oh my god. Like it just like that like like story reasons aside, it's just like okay, you know what? This makes sense now actually.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh my gosh. Rachel's got a gun. Whoops. Um, I did get a follow-up question from Torin in the chat. So question for Sakaya on locations. Is there a good video resource for the viewers to see the locations that we, come across in Blackteeth?
It's something that I've been kind of like playing around with in the back of my mind to maybe I was thinking of perhaps actually doing a Patreon map of season 1, so you'd see
Oh,
kind of
that's neat.
episode by episode, kind of like where they went and where these things are. There are absolutely. I mean, I think one of the easiest ways, obviously, is get on Google Maps, get on Google, and just kind of like look into some of these places. I did a lot of the planning through Google Earth because you can kind of look up over
Oh.
them. But I don't know if I'm going to have time because I'm moving soon. But I have been considering getting out onto the Llyn Peninsula with a camera and doing like a little kind of talk through, kind of like maybe just trying to drive around and go like, this is Myneth Carrig and here's the node where Bethan like checks and and just go to different places.
I do intend on coming down to visit you before you move up here, so I think I can be the camera woman and we can
Yes. No, you can do the talk.
a guided tour.
I'll be the camera woman. Thank
Oh
you.
my gosh, that would be awesome. That is something that leads me to a question that I had for Sakaya. And if anybody else knows, that'd be great. But I was just curious. So you've said before that the heat wave, it was a real heat wave in 1976, and that was like the dates line up exactly with what is in Blackteeth. The Ghost Realm on in Traith Krugen, is that is that real folklore? Like, is that actually a rumored place where the veil is thin?
The Ghost Realm itself is entirely fictional. I
Sure.
made that up for the basis of the story. I made it up, but yeah. But again, with everything, I think the best lies hold an element of truth. So I wanted to build a ghost realm there, but I'm obsessed with history, geology, folklore. So all of the things about that area, I try to feed into what I knew about the place. So Traeth Cregan, this part of Wales is being constantly eroded. There's an Iron Age hill fort just down the hill from the view out of my back window, and it is every year it is being eaten away. They've recently just done a load of archaeology on it to try and get as much information as they can because it's going to get swallowed up soon.
Wow.
Traeth Cregan used to be land. They have found evidence of houses and things out there. So the village in the Ghost Realm was my interpretation of an old settlement that may once have been there.
Neat.
And then there's all sorts of other things. So Shawnee Darn and Hugh Traheli really were hung on the salt flats for the crime of wrecking. They did cut people's fingers and ears off. They did lure a French pleasure ship. The names of the French people were made up because we didn't have that kind of. But yeah, I try to draw in as much like real research as I can to then make a thing up.
That is really, really cool. That is awesome. Okay, so I'm just looking through my viewer questions at the moment. Let's see. Let's do this question from Alessa Vamp, who played Maria actually in the last episode. What is your character's favorite way to relax? And for Sakaya, if you have a fave NPC, if if there's someone you think would be interesting or you had fun playing, that sort of thing.
I'll go last, and yeah.
Okay.
Likes to smoke weed.
Mm-hmm.
For
Bethan
Tiff?
too. Listen,
Just
that
being real.
that cottage, yeah.
Did
420
anyone
Yeah,
is it?
catch
there's
in
lots of
in,
herbs in that.
Yeah.
in episode
cottage.
6? I think someone passes a joint to Tiff, like very briefly, in a pub scene. I don't know if
Mhm.
anyone would catch that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember
I
hearing
did
that.
not.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That's
that's
a good
interesting.
answer. I think.
Just
I
when
mean,
Rachel comes over, it's like you
yeah.
with a tea towel with the window open, like get it out, catch it.
I
The
think.
totally. I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
just
yeah. I
looking.
wasn't doing anything. It's herbal. Don't worry. It's medicinal. I think. I mean, Bethan for sure does to you. You don't. You know, like the type of person that she is, absolutely would. And you know, Tiff and they essentially live together in a way. So yeah, that's part of it. But I think Bethan likes to be outside, in the woods or down at the beach, no shoes on so that she can feel everything under her feet, and just existing in that space. That's where if she ever needs to like decompress, if she needs to ruminate on something, if she is in her feelings, as we saw in one episode, and needs to just go and work through that, she will either go down onto the beach because it's very close to her home, or just walk through the woods with the the plants and the nature that her family have been cultivating there for countless generations. It's that's probably the easiest way for her to relax. Is she smoking weed at the same time? Probably.
We practice fire safety in the woods, but beaches. There's weather.
There's safe ways of putting that.
As a water sign, I relate to the beach thing very, very much.
Yes, it's peaceful. Listen, I the sounds of water is very calming for me, and Sakai just dropped the fact that magic mushrooms grow in Minith Carrick as well, apparently. So
And Bethan has
Oh,
also been known
really?
to enjoy the odd bottle of homemade wine.
bottle of homemade wine with some company.
With
yeah.
company, yeah. That's the thing.
I think we all know how
that
he
is
likes
quite
to
a ways.
Yeah.
We know lots of things
I
about
do have a
Tristan.
non-drug answer as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A healthier
Climbing.
answer. Which is just that, especially with events in like later episodes, like Tiff always was a travel bug. So I think seeing good views is great. Like especially now, climbing to the nearest high point, or just like going and looking out is just very good. Or I mean, she didn't at first like to be a werewolf very often, but like as time goes on, more and more, just like going and zooming, getting the zoomies out, but as a wolf, yeah,
She actually mentions that, doesn't she?
very
And
freeing.
the end of 12, with looking at the view with Heidi.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So
yeah,
scenery is food for
very
the soul.
healing moment.
It is.
Yeah. Connects you to the earth.
It do.
I don't know
Does Rachel relax? Yeah.
She doesn't relax. She reads the Bible.
She does. It's just
She read her Bible.
and read her Bible. I think it's in a very different way than she used to when she was a little bit younger, like when she was still a university student, which she would spend like a lot of time. I think like she played cricket a little bit. There was like she was involved in a lot of clubs, hung out with her friends, probably did like a lot of like gossiping and stuff. Very like older teenager, young adult, very like feminine activities, I guess. But now she's a bit more. She takes herself a little too seriously now. So like I think her version of relaxing is like reading, or I think she probably does like go on like walks around Paheli because most people seem to know who she is, or at least recognize her. So she's probably kind of out and about sometimes, just like, I don't know, hanging out. I imagine that would be kind of nice to step away from Capel Salem and being cooped up all the time.
Yeah.
And the reading's definitely canon.
Yeah, the reading is definitely canon. She has I think it's the bookworm trait.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. So Zoe, if you have thought of a way that
Oh
or if
yeah, I
you
was
know
I
how
was
she would, yeah. Oh, you're good.
no, it's fine. I think this is what I mean about Rianne being lots of bits of me. I think she would just do nothing. Like
Mm,
down to I just sit in her apartment, like rotting almost, just like very,
letting
very
brain
like
go
the
quiet.
chillest of chill, like no stress, also no thoughts, just
Just vibes.
vibes, pure vibes.
Yeah, that
That's
comes out a
awesome.
lot.
I feel like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
We can see Rianne's like distaste for activity quite often. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Yeah.
it's
And like the
Mhm.
whole being averse to heat thing, 100%
Mm.
me. I cannot stand being outside in I'd rather yeah, no. Mm-mm.
How about
Mhm.
socializing?
Not for me.
Do you think that's a form of relaxation for Rianne?
Um
Because she's a face, does she,
somewhat, yeah. I think
or is that work?
it's a little bit of both, I think. Um it's it's a weird one. Because Zoe, I enjoy socializing, but then it comes to a point where I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
When you're done,
No,
you're
I
done.
think
Yeah.
exactly, but I like to think that when I do socialize, I'm quite, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so that's where that
Um,
came from.
I wanted to let you know I have a very silly theory about Rianne. It has to
Uh-huh.
do with the references to her being very, very adverse to heat.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I have this very silly little theory that she is part ice fae. I know we just talked about how Rianne has like no
Oh,
magic, but there's a part of me that's like, what if she
as far as
secretly
you
has
You know of.
know. No, I'm
that,
kidding.
right? Maybe
Oh,
actually, or
Oh
maybe
my.
there's an ancestor or something, you know?
well, you never know. You never know.
Maybe
That's a good
season
one
two's the
though.
song.
Yeah. We'll see.
I
We'll
think
see.
I don't know when. Emily can tell you this. I'm a fan of just like crazy theories, especially when it comes to like supernatural stuff. So I'm constantly, and that is one that I think that I think it came up for me probably like episode 3 or 4, and I was just like, what if? And not knowing anything about the characters yet or the story yet, or we did have a reference to the Fae, and I just in real life love the Fae. I love folklore about the Fae, and so I was just like, what if? What if there's like an inherent like you have this aspect of fire and an aspect of ice, and the ice doesn't like the fire. I was just I like paused it and had a whole thing.
I know. I love that.
um,
That's really good. I love that.
I have a question for everyone. Everyone, is Cake Gonna Love season 2?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh
much.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Mhm.
yes.
Oh my god.
Confirmation. I am very excited for season 2. Um,
I have to say, there is a genuine conspiracy amongst all of the players, or a conspiracy theory, or whatever. All of them want to know what's going on with Rianne.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
mhm. I
Who
feel
can
like you
figure
can
her
get
out,
that
honestly?
sometimes with and that's something I think is so engaging about her, and why I really loved the episode where we got to see Rianne in her element and like talking to a bunch of different people, is because like I feel like sometimes you get that with face characters or highly charismatic characters. It's often about making other people talk, not necessarily you. You might share something to get somebody to open up, but when you're dealing in information, it's very like I'm trying to get you to talk. I'm trying to know what you know. So like we end up not there's plus there's like all these like she's so connected. It's like, ooh, what is the what is the deal there? I don't think I even noticed until Sakaya mentioned it that at the end of kind of that information episode when Rianne puts the lava lamp in the window, I was just like, for some reason, it's really neat listening to this podcast because a lot of it is the way that it's edited and the way that it's acted and stuff. It's almost like actually reading a book and that like the images will play in my head. And for some reason, Rianne's apartment, I don't know if it's just because it's the most relatable space for most humans, but I have like such a picture of what exactly that looks like.
Yeah,
And
me
so
too.
it's such right, like it's so grounding. And so like the moment of Rianne putting the like lava lamp in the window and that actually summoning someone, I was like, I didn't even put together. I thought that was just cool aesthetic. I did not.
There's a little bit of intertexting there, actually, because I wanted a lava lamp because it's the 70s.
Yes.
But I don't know how familiar any of you are with the X-Files, but there was a character very early on in the original seasons called Deep Throat. He's kind of like man on the inside. And early on, I know, right? That's because I think that was a genuine code name for someone during the Watergate scandal. Or someone
Yes,
correct me if I'm
it's the
wrong.
one
but
who did the whistle blowing
Yeah.
on Nixon, yeah.
early on, Mulder gets tape and he puts an X on his window, and that's when Deep Throat would turn up. So I was slightly into texting that as a concept because Fionn is a really important character and a fun character, and I wanted her to have that kind of almost like secret agent mystique to her.
We call her Cher.
Yeah.
We call her
Cher.
She is
We
Cher.
call her
So
Cher.
good.
Because she
So
was being
good.
described during one of the scenes, and I don't remember who it was, but it was just because she had the
I think
long
it was
black
Emma.
hair. And someone was just like, Cher. And now we just call her
I think
Cher.
it was Emma.
Yeah, and now I call her Cher.
We love
A
her.
very pivotal and interesting, exciting point in season 2. So look out for that, everybody.
Yes.
Oh, so it's not just you that calls her
Uh-huh.
Cher, it's actually Bethan that calls her Cher as well.
No, I think that was me. I don't even know if
Oh,
that will make it
okay.
into this, but it's very funny. She is just because that's what she looks like. It's the hair.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's awesome.
And she's hot.
And she's
Oh no,
so
she's
hot.
hot. And she rides a motorcycle. Oh no.
She's so
Adds to the
Northern
hot.
Commando.
hotness.
That's a rare beast.
We add an
Um,
adjective to share in season 2, but I can't. But
We can't say
I
it yet.
can't say what that adjective is. Yeah. But
Look
her
up for
nickname
the
has
season
evolved.
2 Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question from Kester, who played Bronson, who voiced Bronson in the podcast, and is also our storyteller's brother. Given none of the players are Welsh, I'm impressed by how true to the relatively contemporary setting the story feels. How much did the Welsh location and folklore affect the way you approached playing the characters?
I can for sure answer that one. Because there's little pockets of Britain all over Britain. There was that sort of deep-rooted, hedge-rich spirituality, folklore, that kind of thing. But that corner of Wales is one of the deep old ones. And I have a personal interest in the ones that are up near me because I'm up in Scotland. And so it felt nice to kind of honor that and try to feed that into Bethan and her family because they're so intrinsically tied to the land that it felt really important to do that. So yeah, I think it's in terms of folklore and like traditional spirituality before Christianity got to the UK, I think that's definitely one of the cooler places in the UK for that stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I have an answer that is completely opposite to that, in that I didn't look into goddamn anything at all because it just feeds into Tiff. It just like I love the supernatural. I love spirituality. I'm out of character. Very, very, very interested in that. But Tiff is such an outsider. Tiff like canonically doesn't know what she's talking about and isn't even from the region. So
She's the only one
I
that's not
just
from the
really
region,
felt
right?
like
Yeah,
right,
canonically, she's
yeah,
American.
Hmm.
yeah, um, from Jersey.
From Jersey.
But
Hmm.
yeah, she yeah, I personally would love to learn more, and I will probably allow myself to research more and more throughout the seasons because she will have years and years to learn all these things. But for right now, I'm just leaning into her. I'll even ask questions that Emily know the answer to because it's just more fun to just play into that for anyone who needs the answer to that question.
Right, because again, you're the one that's like least, Tiff is the one that's the least connected kind of to the supernatural world. So it's nice to have that. You always have that like audience tie-in because the audience presumably some people might know, things about Welsh folklore, but I know that I didn't going in. Um, so it's really nice to like have that and kind of have like a grounding presence for that. I am curious if it's not too much of a spoiler. How long has Tiff canonically been in Wales? If it's not too much of a spoiler, if it is, you can just
Not
go on.
long.
It sort of gets answered a little bit more in season 2 and may be answered entirely in season 3. But yeah, I think so. We know the Danath D incident was 1975.
Okay.
We know that Tiff was in the country in 1974 because it's a name that Alan Jones mentions to Rachel. But
Right.
not long before
And
that,
that,
we think, right?
No, I think I want to say that without giving too much away, she got on Anwin's radar pretty quickly since moving into to Wales. So yeah, probably 72, maybe 71 at the earliest.
okay. Neat.
In terms of research that I did, I did like a medium amount of research, I guess, to get familiar with the area because Rachel is Welsh or half Welsh. Because I am American, I gave her an American father, so it's just like there's an explanation for why she is the way that she is. But I did do research. She is canonically from Cardiff, not from the Him Peninsula.
Okay.
But so I did a little bit of research, like by looking at photos from the time period or nearby the time period. I watched even like television from the time period, like going around and talking to people or asking women what they have in their bags and just like little like snippets of life like that so that I could just kind of imagine myself in the area. But I didn't I'm again still not super familiar with the area. I just did a little bit so that I could kind of get into the headspace of it. I even like when I was making my character playlist, I put Welsh bands
Oh,
from the time
nice.
period in there. Like I think Man is one that I have a lot of, which one of their songs, Many Are Called But Few Get Up, is one of the ones that I listen to get into the headspace of Rachel. So yeah, I've got little things that I do, but it's not a whole lot.
Mm.
I'm very much on the same page as Emily. It was kind of like I would like we obviously got information from Sakaya, like, in prep, and that was my prep. I feel so bad. but that
Oh,
but
no.
that was pretty much
Rianne doesn't like research. Rianne doesn't like. Well, actually,
yeah.
that's not true. Rianne doesn't like work.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, the more you go into it, the more again, I'm still very unfamiliar, but the prep from Sakai really helped sort of paint the picture, so to speak.
Yeah. Is Rianne also from Wales or is she?
She kind of ish, kind of not. Um, she knew she knew of Bethan's family.
Okay.
She's not quite from the same area. She's from a little bit away. Not well off at all. Actually comes from a very, very poor background. So she's not, in the area, but she's not out of the area either. She's kind of, she
Yeah, so
knows.
I think we said she's a Carnarvon girl, which is so you've got
Yeah,
the Clym Peninsula kind of like hangs underneath the Isle of Anglesey, and then up the coast you've got two of the major
but she's,
North Welsh
yeah,
cities. Yeah.
so she's familiar, but not super clued up. She kind of
Right.
knows-ish. Yeah.
Sure. In the way that like you kind of just know general
Yeah,
area around you, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I know that we're gonna go on break soon, and we're going to be losing Zoe. If everyone's down for one more, perhaps very quick, fun question,
Yeah,
they're
sure.
pretty good for that. Okay. So this question / game, I think Jill knows what this is because it's her friend, comes from Flavia or at FLava on Twitter. Fuck, marry, kill game with NPCs. And I would like to include everyone in this. So, do you... Let's see. Does Bethan have... Well, is
Should
it...
we
Let's
give
see.
like a
Is it for you or is it for your character? I think it's for you.
For
Question
me?
for your personhood, for you, not for the character, because I think
Okay. Okay.
Bethan's
vibes
already
though? Because
done
I
one
know
of
we're
those
ace.
with someone.
So.
Yeah, I'm very ace. But like for me
Theoretically.
in a theoretical space, which I'm happy to do. I do it often when I'm role playing. You gotta get in the headspace of someone who's already when you are definitely not. I think I would fuck Kainak because
Who wouldn't? I mean,
I was saying for anyone watching, like the first line that's delivered by the voice actor Headley, I was like, that sounds like Fenris from Dragon Age, and I was like, that's recoded me a little. So definitely that. I think I would marry Biker Cher because and I would kill's a tough one. Me personally as Emma, maybe Tristan, only because as a person, I'm very much like eat the rich, and he's got like tough, but like I adore the character. And yeah, Jack did a wonderful job with him, and I'm looking forward to all the shenanigans. But I think staying true to my my socialist self. Yeah, sorry, bye, rich guy.
we loved it. Tristan is a character we love to hate.
I love, yeah,
and we love to love too. He is
yeah,
quite engaging.
Yeah, it was a very fun scene. But yeah, that's my options.
I'm definitely going last here, so one of you.
Emily, you can
Well,
go
if you'd
first
like,
because I
was gonna say I could go next if you'd like.
Okay, go ahead, Kate.
Yeah.
I also feel like so let's see. With NPCs, I think I'd like to marry Anwen, please. I love her. She is everything. I love her voice actress. I love like just her characters. I was almost gonna say Kainak, but I think also as an ace person, this is a little difficult for me. But I think I'm gonna go with Emma here and fuck Kainak.
Yeah.
Could I also maybe marry Kainak? I know we don't know enough about him. Is the thing. We don't know enough about Kainak.
The Fae are hard to pin down.
About a Fae prince. No one knows enough.
No one knows about. They're hard to pin down. I mean, some people are talented enough to do it, but yeah, I understand.
I would like to know very much. If my theories are correct, I think an ancestor of Rian's might have. Kill.
Saying nothing.
Oh man, that's also tough.
It's a tough one.
Like, yeah, who would I want to like? Oh, Carrick.
I was about to say there's a very easy answer.
I literally
exactly.
I was waiting for. I was like, oh yeah, he's terrifying, and like as a viewer, I'm like, ooh yes, good, give me that good bad. But like I just I want him to be gone, please.
Yeah. I definitely didn't cackle maniacally when he was revealed.
I was
so
so
good. He's
Love
so
a
bad.
baddie.
He's so good.
I love a baddie.
the voice.
Terrible.
I thought
I
it was
love
bad
him.
enough, like the description coming up to him, and then the voice came in, and I was like,
Who are you, though,
No.
you're my darling?
yeah. And the darling, I can't.
Yep.
Yeah,
He's
it's
the
true.
worst.
That's a good energy for it.
Yeah.
Do you want to go?
I sure. I'm having a really hard time with this because I am ace and on the Aero spectrum, so like
Mhm.
I'm just going to give myself parameters. I'm just going to say I'm not going to go with any easy answers here. I'm just going to give myself the 3 members of the Order of St. Bede to choose from, just to be give myself
Okay.
something.
I like it. I like it.
Oh, okay.
Clever.
Very
Yes.
There's 3 of them, so it's like, hey, I could
Uh-huh.
choose. So
And we do know that Rachel likes an older man, so
That we do.
yeah. None of these are good answers. I'm just gonna let you know that right now. Like I've given myself a very difficult parameter.
It's excellent.
Um,
It's excellent.
So fuck Cedric. It's gonna be awkward and weird, but
gonna
we
say
can
that.
get it over with. Like it's,
Bro. Bro.
he's very clumsy, but like maybe
Whoa.
he'll
He's a
surprise me.
trier. He's a trier.
He'll
Tends to be
try.
clumsy.
Oh,
Gotta
my
like
God.
giggle a little, you know.
Maybe he's hiding something. I don't know. But
Clumsy on the streets.
but
for I can't get too much into this one, but Mary Paul,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
excellent.
just because of
Excellent.
spoilers for season 2, and then unfortunately kill Bryn. Sorry for character development, you're dead.
well, you had an opportunity.
We saved you, but you're gonna
No redemption
immediately,
arc.
Like
No redemption arcs allowed.
it's like no, we saved you, but no.
Mhm.
Okay, are we going
If it's
Rhiannon
between
or
the 3
Tiff?
of you.
Emily, you can go.
Okay. I'm gonna fuck biker share because
Yeah.
how can you not?
Yeah.
Please. I wanna say Mary Paul, but he's a priest, so he's kind of off the market.
I mean, but you could be the exception.
I mean,
Things are changing in the Order of St.
give up your vows for me. It's fine. But no, he's just very wholesome and good. And then I want to say Mary Anwin, but someone already said Mary Anwin, so I'm trying to come up with. Well, I think someone already said Bug Share anyway.
I said
Yeah.
Mary
yeah.
Anwin.
And
I was
also,
marrying
like,
Cher. Mhm.
Wait, you did 2 marries and not a kill.
then Carrick.
The way we're just calling her.
No,
Cher, it's
I'm fucking Cher.
You did 2
I'm
marries.
marrying Anwin. No, I
Mhm.
didn't. I said I
Not
wanted
Paul?
to say Paul. He's off the market.
oh,
I can't
because
pick
of his-
him.
All right.
Since he's off the market, we marry Anwin, and as much as I would love to ACAB her, she's the exception to that as well.
Yes.
And yeah, we're killing Carrick because I, Emily, hate him and want him to die, and also Tiff does.
You have a valid reason. How is this question the hardest
Yeah.
one?
Because they're all so good.
So, my answer might be inappropriate. Just hear me
That's
out.
fine.
Hear me out, okay?
Please.
Good.
God.
So I'm obviously I'm fucking Cher. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Despite the horrible age difference, I'm gonna marry Gethin Jones because I know he would do absolutely anything for me.
Oh,
Gethin.
Oh,
I
he
love the
would-
interaction
Yeah,
with
yeah,
He
Gethin.
would
He's
cool.
treat
Yeah,
so
me.
you-
He would
cute.
treat me so well. I'd be so happy. We could just
Legs.
wait a few. We just wait a few
Legs.
years. Be fine.
The fact that he
He'll be
calls her
fine.
You know what?
legs.
I know.
Yeah.
Facts.
Oh.
I was absolutely
good.
charmed by Gethin. Oh my gosh.
And then the kill. I mean, obviously, Carrick is. I mean, that's the answer, but I feel, I mean, that's been done. Yeah, everyone wants to kill Carrick, I suppose, don't they? I guess kill
I
Carrick.
didn't go for Kagome just because, like, in character,
That was a
absolutely
good
yes.
Bethan answer.
Me, Emma, I'm like, I freaking love a baddie.
That's a good
and
villain.
yeah,
I mean, there are so many
and
people
die
that
with capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many people that if someone wanted to kill, like, it would be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's my fuck, marry, kill.
Okay. So I'm also on the A spectrum. As a demisexual, you need a kind of like, you need a
Yeah.
moment, yeah,
Connection.
a bonding point. So I'm fucking Fion because she
Mhm.
ticks boxes.
Yeah.
The boxes are
Boxes are
ticked.
ticked.
Take my
so
box.
ticked. They are so
Yes.
ticked.
I'm
Yes,
gonna
absolutely.
marry Morrigan because she's
Yeah,
also
Morrigan.
ace.
You know what? That was my second answer.
Yeah, she's ace. She's a nerd like me.
Yeah.
So
She's just
I
too
love
cute.
her so much.
And I'm killing Carrick. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Morgan's such a good choice.
Okay, I think as the storyteller, you should actually answer with PCs, not NPCs. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh,
So
wow.
you're killing Sakaya.
We're still killing Brit, no.
Maybe part 2.
Oh,
No,
no.
I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
All right, so I think that takes us to our break. We will be back in 10 minutes, is that correct? Give or take. So everybody go do bios, stretch your legs, get water, whatever it is you need, hydrate, and we'll be back with you soon. Also, just want to say a quick thank you very much to Zoe for for joining us.
Thanks for
Thank you, Zoe.
It was so
you,
wonderful
everybody.
to
Thank
have
you.
you.
I'm sorry I
think
couldn't stay
they did.
longer.
That is
No, it's
totally
okay.
okay. Love you
Love
very
you guys.
much.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Love you, Zoe.
We'll see you soon.
Bye bye.
Oh yeah, I'm watching the other screen.
Yes,
Hello.
perfect timing.
Let's go. Hi, welcome back, everyone. So we unfortunately have lost Zoe, but that's okay. We can keep going. We love her very, very much. So I think I'm gonna keep going with this Q&A with some audience questions because we have quite a few. Let's see. This one is interesting. I'm going to kind of combo these two questions from Kieran, or at Kieran Hingston on Blue Sky. How did Black Teeth come about? And how much did the initial concept change by the time you got to the first recording session? I think that one's for, let's just start with Sakaya, and then I'll do a character question after.
So, like, how did I come up with the actual concept of Black Teeth?
Yes, and did that like concept change by the time you got to the first recording session, or even like after the first session, did you realize there were things?
That's a really good question, actually, because I kickstarted Liminal in 2019 when it was first coming out. It was written by Paul Mitchell, we mentioned. He's like a maths tutor in Sheffield University. Also writes games for the RPG world. And it just ticked a lot of boxes at the time. I've always liked kind of urban fantasy. I've liked folklore, but I wanted a kind of like a mechanics light game. Really like the look of it, so I'm kickstarting that. And I got it, read it, absolutely loved it. It became like, without having played it, became one of my favorite RPGs of the year. And I kept trying to get games together, even like just family games and stuff, and I kept sort of failing. I think I did one day game with some friends. And so Black Teeth was originally going to be, well, no, so there, I'm going to go all arse over tit about this. I finally worked out a plan for like Black Teeth. I thought, okay, I'm going to have like a 3-arc podcast, maybe story. And the way in which I was going to develop this, I'm not going to say now because it would lean into some spoilers for coming seasons, because
Fair enough.
an element of this has remained, and I don't really want to ruin things.
Sure.
But it was a much smaller concept. But I'm me, and I can't keep things small, unfortunately. I have to really complicate stuff.
We love it.
I wanted to, because I had never played Liminal, still by this point, apart from one little game. I didn't want to go into such a big project having not played it, so I set up like a friends and family game in the same world. I called it Black Teeth, and we'd never got it up and running before I managed to actually start recording this. So in actual fact, I went straight into this. Season 1 is the first Liminal I'd ever played.
Wow.
There's yeah, I'm getting to that. I've got the producer in my ear here. So the yeah, there are, by the way, I think I might mention this in season 2, but there's one mechanical rule I do very, very wrong all the way through season 1, and I will be correcting it.
Oh.
Which we can talk about later if you like.
Sure.
But yeah, so our producer Ben, who is making all this run amazingly smoothly, was one of the characters in the original Black Teeth. A character called Nathaniel Ballard, an eccentric, rich occultist who is part of the Red Room Society. Jill's got it. Nathaniel gets mentioned in season 1 of Black Teeth as an aside by Katie at the Red Room archives. So there's a little bit of like jokey inside into texting of other games. But interestingly, a lot of the work that I did on that Black Teeth does feed into the actual production, and as a nice kind of like full circle thing, we have actually finally started up that game. So they're getting to play like a Black Teeth
Nice.
like alt version, with very different. One of them plays the Katie character in a way. I mean, Katie was kind of, I was always going to have an archives, but one of our players is obsessed with Magnus Archives, so wanted that kind of like, you know,
Nice.
protocol archivist kind of thing. So yeah, it has developed. The thing that developed the most was just the length of it. I went really overboard with, oh my god, I want to take this from then to now, and there are reasons I want to do it, but don't you just love it when women really, I think, is
Yeah.
Black Teeth 10 season tagline.
Yes. Excellent. So for our cast, I have, again, from Kieran, did any of your characters end up going in a different direction than you expected when you first created them? Or were there any themes you wound up exploring with your characters that are unexpected?
I kind of already answered this earlier. When I was talking about how Tiff was originally gonna just I didn't understand mechanically how werewolves work, so I was like, yeah, she got turned into a werewolf against her will, which is impossible, not how that could
Right.
work.
Mm-hmm.
And then she murdered her whole pack by herself, which could never. That's a baby werewolf. Okay, good luck. And then the whole like luring evil men away and disappearing them in the night thing never came to fruition. But then yeah, there's just a mechanic in the session 0 where we were building up what like factions our character was related to, and then like even before that we had like sort of just like we're talking about how our characters might be related and know each other, and like the whole like the reason that, I mean, with like Tiff knows Bethan and is close to Bethan, but like the whole like Tiff backstory with like being mixed up with the Order of St. Bede and with Rachel in ways that has not come up explicitly, but has been
Mm-hmm.
hinted at. So I'm not gonna say like
Fair enough.
like obviously like I know and like we know like what's going on there, but yeah, that whole thing very much just sort of informed Tiff. And then what surprises me about her is like Um, any situation where Tiff's responses are informed by the trauma of how she became a werewolf and that whole like experience with Jacob Carrick is not something that I personally can relate to explicitly. Like I'm fortunate enough that most of the trauma in my past was caused by me. Like you know, I mean there's some stuff like I've experienced the world, you know, I'm not, you know, totally, but like in this way, like I can't really relate exactly to what Tiff goes through. So those are the moments where I find myself the most listening to Tiff and letting her guide me in what to say, um, rather than it feeling like I'm making decisions. But I always try to just honor what she's telling me in those moments and try to do the best that I can to honor that and showcase her perspective in a way that is true to her experience. And I hope that I'm doing it respectfully.
I think so.
Yeah. I think so too.
I guess the easy answer for Rachel is the stalking bit. Like that did come up in like before we started playing. Like I knew that that was going to be like a part of her character, but that's not something that's not a direction I expected to go in as I was building her. It just happened to be how it turned out. Um, and then getting that flashback episode, I think really helped me flesh out more of who she really was and make her a richer character in my head. Because I tell this to everyone, like I ask to watch or listen to the podcast, is that I hate my performance in the first couple of episodes because I was so nervous. I was like laughing through my lines. I was laughing through what I was saying because I was just I had never like really recorded for a podcast before. I wasn't super sure in the character. So she really like becomes a stronger, more like identifiable character in my brain at the longer that we go on, especially after shooting that like little flashback scene where I get more of her past that's like cemented in my head. So yeah, she's become more like robust, more three-dimensional as time has gone on, as opposed to just, yeah, she's the first woman in the Order of St. Bede. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Like it's there's a bit more to her now. So nothing too drastic changed during play, but I do always discover new things about her. Like Emily said, just sometimes the character talks to you. It's just like, okay, you feel the direction that they would go or how they would react to a certain thing. Um, in one particular scene, I found out that she has a fear of drowning.
Oh, uh-huh.
It didn't really come out in the episode because I was having a lot of like internal thoughts about that. I told Sakai after we recorded it, that is the first time while playing a game that I had actually gotten very, very close to crying. It was just a very, very emotional scene for me because it was so emotional for Rachel. Especially with someone she cares so much holding her down to do it, even though she knows
Right.
that she needs to do it.
That's a huge part of that scene, who it
Yeah,
is.
so I do discover things about her, like little tidbits, but overall, her character didn't change too much throughout play.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's sometimes because I've had that experience before too, where it's like you have a character that's like, I'm not sure how fleshed out this is, and then you kind of like sit in them for a couple of sessions, and then you're like, okay, wait, I'm
Yeah, then you
starting
really
to
find your
get.
footing. So like she's a much stronger character now, and like I remember after we finished recording season 1, I I was like, I can't believe I have to wait to play her again. Like I want to step back into her
Oh,
shoes because like I felt I was just like, "No, I want to keep playing Rachel because I learned to love her so much. So the fact that like we've recorded season 2 already and are about to get into recording season 3, I'm very, very happy about where she is as a person.
that's so awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see where these characters go. Um, I love it.
A lot of the core of who Bethan is, I think, kind of stayed true to original concept of putting her together. The things that I didn't plan on, I hadn't. Tristan and Kynak actually were not things that I'd put together in her backstory. It was something that kind of like unraveled in the story and then through working with Sakaya. So it was a surprise to me to kind of have that side to her come out. It wasn't something I'd necessarily considered, although, you know, the sort of woman that she was, especially women like her in the 70s, you know, it was very much a gaining that liberation and independence and you know, having control of your own body and your own sexuality and stuff. So it made sense as things were kind of unfolding for that. And then I also wasn't expecting the emotional impact it would have on her when she started taking the lives of the things that we were coming up against in combat. It didn't necessarily hit after the first one. I knew, you know, and again, like we've been saying, sometimes something will happen for your character and it triggers something in your head where you're like, oh, you feel a certain way about this, and it's not something that you planned and you just kind of roll with it. So she was a little shaken up, but then it was just that knock-on effect of like, and then the second one and then the third one, and by that point, and then she'd gone through her own physical injury and just starting to question a lot of things and feeling unsure of herself, and it was a big emotionally impactful moment for her, at least. So yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, Bethan, it just so happened, got a lot of the
Yeah.
killing blows, which I think is just it just
like, as
She
the
did not
dice were
choose
telling the
this
story.
life.
Yeah,
Yes.
she did not choose
It
this
chose
life.
her.
Just because it does come down to dice a lot of the times, and just the way that
Right.
the game mechanics were working, but the game mechanics were facilitating something in the story that you know, we didn't plan for, and it just sort of came about naturally, and it led to that beautiful moment on the beach, I think, where she's reflecting on that, and it caused her to reflect on the role that her grandmother had as a caregiver, and wondering, like, did she have someone who was caring and supporting for her? Because at that moment Bethan felt quite isolated and was like, I don't know, I know that I like, and that my role in life is supporting and caring for others, and she feels really natural, and she likes that about her life. But it did call to question about the way that her grandmother operated, and wondering if she ever felt the same way. And I just think it was nice feeling that moment, especially on that beach, with the way that the story was going, that impactful moment of like feeling the generations above you, and reflecting on how that informs yourself. Not necessarily generational trauma, but like generational learning and existing in a
Yeah.
way that's not like formal. So yeah.
Well, and also like I think it's easy to forget that the characters are relatively young at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
most of them are 23. I think Tiff is the oldest at 25.
Ra-
I think.
Rachel and Emma are twin.
We're
Rachel and,
25.
Rachel and Bethan are 25.
Yeah. Yeah, we're 25.
You're
Rhiannon
25.
is
Okay.
youngest at 23, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. And then
I think
Tiff
Tiff
is
is a bit
27.
older. We talked
Tiff is
about
the
this
oldest,
being
yeah.
like
Yeah.
27 or 29 or something like
Yeah.
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 7.
So I think it's also, there's a little bit of that thing where because I think it starts happening sometimes when you're a teenager, but even like as you grow up, as you reach milestones that like your parents or your guardians or adults in your life, when you interacted with them as children, when you start to get to that
Yeah.
age, you're like you idolize them in your head because that's just how humans are built. You know, it's just like you're like, wow, they're an adult, they know things, and then you get to that age and you're like,
They were
wait
still
a
children.
minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
I will
when
say,
it's like, oh,
from
I
my
need somebody
perspective,
still.
it's really
Mhm.
interesting because I am the baby of the group. Like, I just turned 25 in the past couple of months. So I just turned the age that Rachel starts out as in season 1.
Mhm.
And we're only going up from here. So it's going to be me having to base like that conversation we were just having, like, oh, when you reach that age and you're like, oh yeah, you're just children, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to play that from like the viewpoint of like a child. So it's gonna be kind of difficult for me, but
It's fun.
early childhood trauma has made me an old soul, so I think it'll
Well,
be
that's
fun.
and I think that's the kind of thing with Bethan, is that she feels older in a spiritual sense and maturity level than she
Sure.
actually is in her years. And again, I do think that comes down to a lot of the way that wise women were designed, the way that they're taught, and just I like to think, and this is what I wanted to bring through with Bethan, that you are connected to those generations above you, especially when you have powers the way that she does. It is an ancestral knowledge that gets passed down and it only builds and grows from there. So she has the benefit of having something from the past that's kind of creating that support around her as well.
I think
There's definitely
something.
times. Oh, sorry.
No, well, no, you first, because I was yeah.
I was just gonna say, there's definitely times where we can see Bethan's youth
Mm-hmm.
shine through though, and I think it's like in those interpersonal moments where it's just like you need practice at those things,
Mm-hmm.
specifically to me it's the when Bethan is feeling like isolated and she's going through that hurt, and like we like try to reach out, and then like she's not ready to, she's
Yeah.
like she needs us to push and none of us know how to push,
Yeah. Yeah.
like none of us are really able to navigate that, and then Bethan's like, well,
A
no
group
one's
of young
even
people.
asking, and it's like, well, we are, but it's fine, you get your comfort from a man instead of your friends, little 25-year-old thing. And I don't know, I really like, I love it, it's a great character choice, don't get me wrong, but like
Mm-hmm.
that is not wise old woman behavior.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like it's indicative too of like you have this space where you have been trained. You like Bethan is that old soul that's been like trained in a lot of this from a very young age. But like actually going out into the world, like death isn't something necessarily that she's like alien to,
Yeah.
but not bringing about death. And
Yeah.
so it makes
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
sense to me that in that like realm that she would kind of feel a bit more lost, a bit more like
Yeah.
I don't I don't even know how to talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's I don't know. I feel like it was such a great I love Bethan's I love Solace. I love that
Yeah.
episode. I listened to it a couple of times and I just um I don't know. I love our giggly little gutter witch. Makes me
But
very
bear in mind,
happy.
for Bethan, one of the like some of her naivety stems from the fact that she, being brought up as a wise woman,
Mm-hmm.
she's not had the opportunity to be young
Yeah.
and
No.
and
Yeah.
carefree and playful. So she's had this kind of like, this enforced age, wisdom on her, and
Yeah.
so she will make those mistakes because she's not lived through them in
No.
a normal kind of growing up.
No. It's a very
Mm.
interesting, unique situation, and because like her, I mean, we could get to the. I'm not sure that we do address it, but I guess the Q&As is a perfect time to bring this stuff up. Her parents moved away, and she chose to stay with her grandmother. And then her grandmother died. So although she's happy where she is and she feels it's
Oh,
important where she is, she is on her own in a like you can have friends, but like in terms of like familial and that
Mm-hmm.
type of
sure.
support network doesn't have it. So it's trying to learn through that, and that it does just take practice, and you have to go through those things and then be ready to address it, because I think at that point she didn't really know what it was she was feeling, and that's why when she was on the beach and she was speaking it through, and actually what she did, the first bit of comfort she did was looking through her grandma's stuff and connected stuff with her grandmother, and that was actually what gave her that moment, because although her grandma wasn't there physically with her, she was there emotionally and spiritually in that place, so that's kind of what created that little support.
Yeah, and that was such a beautiful little moment. I think Sakaya narrates the like you can almost hear her grandmother's laughter.
Yes. Oh.
Like and then the took you long enough with
Yeah.
Bethan. Like you almost because again, like Sakaya was saying, like she hasn't gotten to be young, so it's nice to see the little snippet of essentially baby Bethan getting to
Yeah.
to be a young witch with her grandmother, like getting that guidance and getting that like it's like getting to not be a wise thing of
Yeah. Yeah.
infinite knowledge for one moment. And I think a lot of us can
Relate to
a
it.
lot of us old souls are made to grow up too quickly can
Yeah.
relate to that,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you feel like people rely on because it's so much of the community relies on her because they relied on her grandmother. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like one of those almost like vicious cycles of like, okay, I need to
Yeah.
you think you do it on your, again, in like questioning, like, did her grandmother have somebody to go to? It's like, in that moment, I thought of the way that therapists are often, if not always, like mandated to have therapists of their own,
Yeah.
because it's like, you can't.
Mm.
And I think when you're young and raised to be so independent or forced to be so independent, it's like, well, my grandma must have not had anybody because she had all the answers. And then you get to that age and you're like, wait a minute.
Wait.
Wait, didn't plan for this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think
I
it's
didn't.
really interesting that Sakai and I are on the same wavelength and want to talk at the same time all the time. Um, just quickly to say, I really think it's interesting that our two storytellers on our transmissions flagships, when they get to play in the other game, both have stepped into this role of, okay, I'm over, everyone relies on me. I am the one pulling things together, and I need to learn how to rely on other people. And like both of you guys have this through line
Yeah.
that it's like, how much of that is being a forever DM? How much of that
I think what it is
the
me
way
and
that you guys
Sakaya,
are as people?
we
And
have
how much of that
personality
is
traits that
yeah.
are the same, and the Venn diagram is the circle. Like we're
I know you guys rely on each other a lot, like back and forth. Like you as people are very close, and like I don't know. I just
Mhm.
love that. I
Yeah.
just love it. I
It's
don't know.
I hadn't really thought of that. It's funny.
I don't know what you're talking about. We're perfectly stable.
Yeah.
It's okay
So I
not
don't.
to be okay.
I don't play a character in Blackteeth, so I can't really talk about character changes or development. But the only thing I'd like to add to this really is, well, firstly, something that Emma mentioned earlier about dice rolls tell the story, and those moments where your character makes those decisions for you, and they all kind of have an impact on. It's really important to kind of like remind ourselves of that, because something that I have always tried to do with actual plays, right from the beginning, like from 2016, is heavily edit, try and turn them into radio drama versions of an actual play. And it's not for everyone, but it's kind of a thing. I need it for me because of my ADHD. I can't listen to actual plays that are very raw, because when they go off on tangents, I go off on tangents, and then I'm like, oh, they're back with the plot, and I've just missed 10 minutes of it. And so I kind of did it for me, and then it became a thing, and it became popular with certain audiences. Okay, there's a thing here, but it is it's not a radio drama. It's not a scripted. We're not telling a scripted show. This is a game, and so those character decisions and those dice rolls are really important, because the whole of chapter 10, the whole of Solace, evolved from Bethan's state of mind
Yeah.
and the way that dice had that was none of that was plotted or planned.
No.
And it all feeds into the story, and the story evolves. Like you can have like way markers. I think any of you who watch Blood and Lyrium, you may have heard Emma talk about having point A and point Z and a couple of points in the middle, and you kind of have to do that to stay sane, because if you try, and I did, I mean, the players might tell you I was going a little bit bonkers with the recording of this particular one with season one, because I had plotted it much more heavily than I usually do, because I was making things kind of line up with dates from history, like this heat wave.
Right.
And so I was kind of like, guys, you got to, because we don't get the, and it just and I had to kind of like breathe and remember that the game is told by the players and by those choices. The only thing I wanted to add about character development is that this is kind of, it's relatively unique for a TTRPG, because these players also have a way in which they can actually think about evolving their characters that you don't normally get to do, because they know their characters are going to be 32 years old, 43 years old, 50 years old, and they're already kind of having ideas about, like, how does my character age up, what are they going to look like, how are they going to behave. So yeah, it's not something you normally get to do. I'm not saying this is the first time it's ever been done, but it's a kind of
not
nice way
common.
to have an extra thought of what happens to my character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really neat. I'm excited to see how they evolve in subsequent seasons. Um, I want to go to a question from Lenny, or at Broadfoot Lenny on Twitter, or at Place Called List on Blue Sky. There's a couple of perhaps shorter questions here, so I might do two for here. But the first one was, what do you imagine your character smells like? And
Oh.
perhaps Sakaya, you might go with a favorite NPC or two.
Nag shampoo incense.
Ah, excellent.
You know,
Perfect. Yeah.
incense and herbs and natural, and none of it is like she's wearing perfume or she's wearing. You just tell.
Sure.
You know when you meet a person and you're like, I know exactly the house you've just come out of, because like you can just tell
Yeah.
where they live and the space that they exist in. Yeah, that's definitely
Yeah.
Bethan.
Well, she's got so many soft like she's got the hair and the
Yeah,
flowy stuff, so
flowy
so many soft
fabrics
surfaces
and-
to get that incense,
Yes.
smell in. Ah, excellent.
This is such a hard question. I mean, it's probably easy for like characters like Bethan, where it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense that she smells
Right, when
something
you have an
like
occupation that
But, like,
perhaps.
Rachel.
Fabric softener.
Maybe fabric softener. A kind of boring answer, I guess, would be like dusty old books, like that smell of like a physical book. That I don't know if you guys do this, but when I read a book, I just sniff it. Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. It's
so nice.
so
Like she
it's so
smells
nice.
probably like parchment. She does wear like a shoulder like holster, so maybe a bit of like leather or something. So it's I think she has like a very like a masculine scent almost.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess that's my answer. Parchment and leather.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
tea.
think Tiff smells really musky. Like just like really like earthy and like I want to say BO smell, but like just very sweaty. I don't know.
That's what I
She
smell.
smells like sweat. She smells a little. That's what I smell like right now. This room is
Yeah, I
really
know.
warm.
I'm wearing long sleeves.
But like also I want to say just like a tiny bit like wet dog, just like the teensiest, tiniest bit. Just
Do you think
Love that for her.
with Tiffany's past, do you think she wears perfume? Or does she
I think she used to be. I think Tiff used to be really girly, and then after transforming, in the like aftermath, is just like doesn't feel. This is a depressing answer to this question, but it doesn't feel cute anymore, and so like all of that stuff she just like gave up on basically. So no perfume, especially because like with her nose, like perfume would like drive her
Oh
insane.
yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tiffany probably knows what we all smell like to this
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah, I was
Maybe I
about to
should have
say,
been.
And it's
knows
the
exactly
70s, like
you
what
all
are the
smell.
70s? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What does
Uh-huh.
everyone
Especially with
smell?
all the
Natural
black
smells.
Rachel wears, knows exactly what the fuck Rachel smells like.
Listen,
She's
she's
so
a sweaty
sweaty.
girl.
Yeah.
She takes after me.
Listen,
That's the part of
sweaty.
me that's in
The heat
Rachel.
The heat wave. Everyone just smells
Yeah.
like sweat because it's.
Yep.
Yeah, I am looking forward to re-embracing Tiff's femininity in later seasons as she like becomes more confident in her new body, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
But no perfume ever, because
No.
the deodorant maybe. But
I feel like it's one of those things where it's like it'll like give you a headache because it's like the smell's too strong, you know?
I feel like because again, just tapping into who and what Bethan is, but like I feel like she would make like just natural, like using like rose petals or florals or like herbs and like infusing that into an oil to let you kind of have that, so you've got a smell that's nice and
Ah.
feels feminine, but it's not those harsh chemicals of a perfume. It's just something that is just natural for you.
I like that.
and this is why we're best friends, Bethan.
Yay!
This is why I
How the
love you.
accents came
We smell
out.
like incense and weed. Yeah.
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 I love it.
It's okay.
You want NPCs?
Yeah.
Okay, if this
Mm.
is a smell-based question, then there's something that is a big theme in season 1 of Black Teeth is tobacco.
Mhm.
because it was a huge
Mm-hmm.
part of society back then. So I'm going to go with the three heavy smokers of season one. We have Fionn Edwards,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
who almost chain smokes this French brand called
But she
Gauloise
looks so good while doing
Blue.
it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say a fan favorite.
And
Love to give
Gauloise
her a
Blue was
sniff. I
it was
mean,
French. It was rare. I think it was kind of hard to find in the UK
Mm-hmm.
then, so that
Uh-huh.
adds to that kind of mystique. Um, Paul Thomas smokes Borkham Riff, and Bryn Aitchison smokes kind of a half Edgeworth and Field and Stream.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
that's the pipe tobaccos that you'll smell from them. And because someone may have asked, what does Tristan smell like?
I want to know.
Um,
The audience wants to know. Listen,
so
tell me.
Tristan would like wear, say, like a very, it's 1970s, so sort of like a very expensive Paco Rabanne or something like that.
Okay, yeah,
But the
yeah.
thing
She's
is,
posh.
you don't often smell that. So Tristan smells like what you want him to smell like,
Of course.
Oh.
Yep.
Mhm.
because
Oh.
he's
Of course he
quite a
does.
powerful. He's quite good with glamour magic, and
Glamour
he can
magic,
alter
yeah.
oh,
any-
he smells like a
Really?
corpse.
So
That's also why Tip doesn't like him. Is like he
I want you
smells
to be
weird. He's
Yeah,
like a
I love
corpse.
that for
I
him.
don't trust it.
Smells-
What does
Glamour
Kaina smell
magic.
like? What does Kaina smell? Me and Kate
Yes,
want to know.
please. We does this has
He
to
had
know.
like 3 lines.
I don't care.
I am feral for him conceptually
he
because
is-
Ace.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
there's 3 elements to Kainach. One of the elements is 2 of the elements are almost season 2 spoilers in terms of like
Ooh.
how they anchor him in place.
Yeah.
The one that we can really talk about is like his hair aspect and
Yeah,
meadows. So let's say like definitely kind of like meadow flowers and that sort of
Pet rabbits also have a
things.
nice smell. Rabbits and cats, because they're quite clean.
Yeah.
There's just something like it sounds weird, but enough of us have cats here where it's like there's something about the smell of a cat that I just really
Confusing.
dig. It gives me
Yeah,
happy. It
absolutely,
gives me
yeah.
happy vibes. So it's like,
So that's it. Yeah, we'll go that with the season 1. Season 2 we can maybe tap into.
My cat's
Yeah.
stink
Very
then.
excited to re-ask that question for season 2.
me
No,
too.
my I hope to live vicariously through Bethan. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, I had my cat growing up. She actually used to both of our cats actually used to sleep in the laundry room at night. Like we put that was where their beds and stuff were. So she always smelled like
Yeah.
laundry and very
Yeah.
nice cat smell. So I just would like bury my face in her every day. Like, "Oh, sugar, my baby."
Yes.
So I have this one actually was asked sort of by a couple of people. I know Lenny asked, and I'm trying to see who else. I will perhaps say at the end of the question because I think it was also Satan. So this is kind of a similar question from both of them. Do you have any themes or motifs that you associate with your character? And for Sakaya, I guess it's like, is there perhaps pick like a faction? Is there like a theme or motif that like can kind of connect them all?
Cortina.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Cortina.
The red Cortina. Also
I was
the
actually
Webley Mark. What was it? What's the gun's
It's a
name?
Mark
Full
6, that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
name? Webley Mark 6. So like an old revolver, and then Cortina. Black suits, I think, as well for Rachel. That's a pretty obvious one. I don't know about like any like symbolism or anything like deeper than that. It's just kind of like what Rachel's associated with.
I love
Yeah.
that.
Do you think that I am curious because her outfit in the flashback was so very different than what
Yeah.
she wears now, unless it's a spoiler, of course, but like, is there any of that still in her wardrobe? Like, does she have any
Maybe.
is there ever a time where she doffs the black suit and puts on something else?
I don't think she does. She will buy like newer clothes and like you might see her experiment a little bit more in season 2. Hint. But it still is that black attire that is associated with the Order of Saint Bede. I don't think maybe like in just relaxing around the house, it's probably still very like muted neutral tones, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing as colorful as she used to dress. She maybe
Mhm.
still has some of the stuff in her closet though.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe. I think for Bethan, if we imagine just like table dressing of like hippie, nice fabric, and then a cup of herbal tea and a bundle of flowers and herbs, like wild things that grow, tied together with twine, and on the twine is a little seashell because the beach is also really key and important to her and her motifs. So those things in my mind, maybe like the tarot deck sitting in a little spread as well of just like
Mm-hmm.
the vibes for her. My Pinterest board for her is real woodsy and,
Yeah.
and witchy. So her visuals have always been really right there in my head. So
Mhm.
that's her.
Was I'm a little curious. Was
Mhm.
the Iron Crosses, especially because it
Yes.
came so important in that first
It
in that
did.
first episode? Um,
Yeah,
is
do
that
it, Emily.
something you had
So yeah,
improv
I
in the
can't.
yeah? Oh
We all
yes.
yes.
got them.
So I gave a gift to the players for the end of season 1 when we were done recording. I
Oh, my hand
knew
is burning. No, I'm just kidding.
I knew that I wanted her to. She does like talisman. She does things that like help protect and ward because ward magic is her thing. And so, I was like, I want to do something that like plays in with motifs of like how you do protection and protection from certain bad energies. And so, iron can be important. Coffin nails have a big significance in terms of like practitioners, the copper wire. And then so I was like, I wonder if such a thing exists. So I was trying to look for like an image, like a visual of what she was going to make. I
Mhm.
found a picture and I was like, that's perfect. Realized that linked to an Etsy store, and weirdly enough, they had 5 of them. So I was like,
That is so
well, I
perfect.
guess
Whoa.
yeah.
That's
So
Like, look at
incredible.
this.
yeah,
It's
So
so pretty.
stunning.
they're amazing. So she bought them, and that was her because I know some people who just like their own tradition is that on your birthday you give gifts, and that's kind of
Oh,
a
uh-huh.
part of what I put for her. So she gave them those gifts on the day of her birthday when we first kind of meet them, and then it ended up becoming significant because I tried to put it in the hand of
Right.
the little girl.
Yes, and
So
it's so funny too because it's
yeah,
coffin nails and
yes,
like
and
she was
iron
the
and
whole
yeah,
reason that they were
yeah,
that those revenants. Yeah.
yeah. So it was just again like we were saying when I came up with the birthday that I wanted and the water, and it's
So
just
fortuitous.
Providence. That's the thing. It's just like these things were felt like random little choices, and yet actually what they did was they pulled together to make something that was so cohesive and symbolic and significant for us as players and the characters, and it fed into the story. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was really pleased when I found them, and I hinted at them that I was getting a little gifts. I gave them that. I gave them certain gifts that tie to their characters and then also to them as people, and then some
Mm-hmm.
dice as well that were yeah. But the crosses were, it was just so funny how it happened. Looking for an image
Mm-hmm.
of what I wanted, tied to an Etsy store, it was perfect. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
She has a bit of me. The thing, one of the things that I gave her is that my love language is gift giving. So I gave that to her as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tiff, is
Oh,
there any
yeah.
themes,
Um,
motifs?
as far as like visual motifs, definitely mountains, mountaintops.
Mm.
Uh, wolves, shocking, I know, really deep answer.
Uh-huh.
Forest as well. Um, also specifically because of Bethan, like piles of cats. Is
Mm-hmm.
very just and then like as far as like emotional themes, I think embracing femininity and the whole the trans metaphor is definitely there. But then just sort of like taking back your power is
Mm.
a really
Mm-hmm.
big thing for her. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's such a and I think that we've talked about this just ourselves, but I want to say for the benefit of the audience, um, it you know, there's so much. I feel like buildup is a bad word, but there's so much, not bad word, but just a incorrect of there's so much talk about how dangerous Tiff's wolf form is and how like it does kind of make sense that she holds back on it, or perhaps is even a little afraid of it. There's references to the fact that she almost didn't come out of it last time, and that she could have hurt Rachel. Um,
We see that
and
in the first battle. In the,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with the talk down that had to happen. Um, and so I just we've talked about this, but I wonder if was holding off so long on Tiff going into her werewolf, because they've been in danger with the Wreckers. I mean, that would have been that was a very dangerous situation. And what was it, Tiff? Was it you kind of that held off on transforming, or?
I think honestly, a very big part of that was I wanted the first time that Tiff transformed to really hit. I just really
Mhm.
wanted to not, I really wanted to avoid playing that card
Mhm.
too early because it felt like such a, I don't know, it felt like such a significant moment. Um, and it just felt fit. I don't know. I thought it would have been really unsatisfying for it to happen too quickly. Um,
Mhm.
and plus I wanted to play like Tiff is doesn't need to be a wolf to be powerful. Like she's
Yeah.
fucking shredded.
I was gonna say, in terms of like motifs and symbolism, I think like a shield is very symbolic of her as well, because she's just like she's always going out and
Yes.
being out in front and
Yeah.
being, a shield. So
I love playing protective women. I Emily want to be a knight in shining armor, but girl. That's
yeah.
that
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
my motivation in life. Um, want to be paladin over here.
Beautiful.
Zakaya, is there like a group of people, or is there like themes and motifs? I'm a little curious as somebody who has like I use music a lot in like planning out campaigns or in working with characters. A lot of times a baby character will form in my head, and then I'll listen to music and they'll be like that song, and I'm like that song, and then it will like start directly correlating to their backstory. And so I have like created a campaign before and started adding all of the character songs just to see where they overlap. Is there, or are there like overlapping themes with quite a few of the characters? Like, where do you see those lines intersecting in Blackteeth when we have such different characters from all different sects?
are you talking about non-player characters?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, that's an interesting one because I think one of the thought processes that I was going through was actually trying to get differentiation to, because Liminal is a game of factions.
Mm-hmm.
So the homogenizing thing for me was the era, the
Mm-hmm.
70s, but we've got people that kind of. So Gethin Jones has just discovered the Sex Pistols, um, young and like very much part of that kind of new wave pushing into the capitalist future that we're about to hit. Whereas you got Bryn Aitchison, who was born in the early 20s, a man of the cloth, you know, seen both wars.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still a lot of like variation and different kind of experiences that we've got through them. And I think really I try to give, I suppose I try to get similarities through factional elements. But in season one, the Order of St. Bede is the only faction where you actually see multiple members. I
That's
think.
true. Yeah.
Correct me if you're wrong.
I think that is
I
true.
mean, other than
Yeah.
the Garnbod trackers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. There's them. So of course their link is climbing, mountain rescue, like freedom. The Order of St. Bede is they're that older generation are very much sort of like steeped in the dogma of their
Mm-hmm.
beliefs. You know, like these supernatural entities have to be contained, silenced, quashed, even.
Right.
And Rachel is the catalyst, the start of something new.
Yeah.
You can't hear
I
her repeat a lot of those beliefs though. Like it's I don't know if it seems out of character for her, but it was intended to be kind of like, oh, these aren't your opinions. This is like what you have had to believe or what you have been taught is true kind of thing.
right.
So like the scene where John and Heidi are at Bethan's cottage and invited in for dinner, and Rachel makes a couple of inflammatory comments. Um,
Mhm.
which internally my brain was like, make it worse, make it worse. but but I chose
Uh-huh.
to be good in that situation, because
Uh-huh.
just I don't think that would have served the scene well at all if I had pushed too hard.
Sure.
Those early scenes were really good though, because they're
Mhm.
specifically with Rachel and John, like both very, because John is by nature inflammatory, so he suffers from a similar condition that Tiff has, and from very different sides of the coin. So it was a very interesting scene. It could have actually become very, very volatile.
Mhm.
It's actually interesting. It was very interesting to me, like listening to that scene, and we've just had all this talk about how like, oh, like we can't let Tiff get into her anger, like we've got to keep her calm, whatever. And then you have this very also angry werewolf, and then Rachel comes out swinging, and it's like, okay, hold on,
But I like
wait a minute.
what was nice is that
wait.
it fed into what Bethan's drive is, which is maintaining a balance, because she kept everyone in check in that room because they were on her land. And
Mhm.
people know, all
Right.
the factions who deal with her know that when you are on Merrick land, there are rules, there are social rules, and you respect it, and you leave your conflict at the door, and you
That's
deal with
probably why
people with
the only reason
respect.
Rachel didn't make it worse.
Yeah, because she told the werewolves like she was good. She gave them food and she was willing to answer them because she works with the supernatural world, and
Right.
wants to respect all the factions, the ones who deserve respect, and then and like help create that balance. But when they started getting pissy, and she was like, "You're on my land," and you see a little forceful side of Bethan come out in her in that moment where she was just like, "We do not talk to people like that here."
And I
Uh-huh.
think I would like to give the audience, the listeners, a little a subtle hint maybe
Mm-hmm.
here, because if you haven't already got this kind of idea from listening to it, the Merricks, there's something about the Merricks, because
There's something about Bethan. Sorry,
Let's
just thinking
not
about there's
talk
something
about
about
Bethan.
Mary scene. Sorry,
Yes,
carry on.
yeah, same.
these werewolves are very, even though they've kind of like broken into her land or whatever, they are extremely, like Heidi in particular, because Heidi's the peacemaker of their side. So if
Mm,
Bethan is the balance maker there, she's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Not conciliatory, but very apologetic and very
yeah.
um, almost, I don't know, deferential.
Very
Mhm.
formal. Yeah.
Yeah, and it comes up
Diplomatic.
a couple of times when
Mhm.
people from the supernatural world deal with Bethan.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's like you see the factions and the way that the factions deal with the Merricks. It's not like the way that they're dealing with Bethan. It's the way they deal with the Merricks that we see. Yeah. It's interesting.
Let's see. Let's get to um let's see something interesting, because I know we talked about this a little bit with Zoe, but I want to get your folks' answers. And let's see, Sakaya, I'm going to have you choose, maybe we'll have you choose something from each of the player characters. So the question is, it's kind of twofold. What This comes from Satan, or from Alessa Vamp, who plays Maria. What does your character have that you want? And then what do you have that your character would want?
Rachel has a focus that I do not have because I am plagued by ADHD. Like she really just can lock in and just like, this is the one thing. It's like the side of ADHD, the hyper focus. That's pretty much her only focus. Um, so that I would love to take from her. I think that would be wonderful to be able to pick and choose what I pay attention to. Um, and something that she could gain from me. Am I understanding this question correctly?
Yeah.
So something she could gain from me, maybe not viewing
Don't
things so black
stalk.
and white. Don't stalk people. Like maybe like a little bit more sensitivity, because I'm a very sensitive person. I cry
Mm.
in conflict. Like so maybe like we
Yeah.
could balance each other out and create a functional human being.
Uh-huh.
I think what I would like to take from Bethan is having a little cottage in the woods, living off grid, and not having to worry about being in the grind that we all have to live in. That sure would be swell. I would love to
Uh-huh.
live a life like that. Honestly, it just seems peaceful and um a connection to nature and the land that the vast majority of people in this day and age have completely lost touch with. And I think there's something really charming about it, and I'd love that. In terms of what she could take from me, I don't know. I'm not going to be good at answering this because I'm not historically known for seeing good things about myself.
Well, I guess if she could see your life like the way that
Okay.
she sees that you see hers, what would she
Um,
want?
I get to have an impact uh, on an awful lot of children in my job. I am a school teacher. I teach teenagers. I can see about 200 of them in the space of a week, and I find it really satisfying and rewarding to see the kids where I know I'm having a direct impact, and the support that they're getting from me that they don't necessarily get everywhere else. And there's a lot of them. There's a lot of kids who have that kind of need for something nurturing in their life, and I get to give it to quite a lot of kids. And I think that's something that I know that she would like in her life, because she is designed to be that Mother Earth, divine feminine energy of, like, that sort of aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And getting to have that kind of impact on that many kids, I think would be something she would excel at. I think she would like that.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
I want to be a werewolf, so that's what I would take from Tiff.
Fair
Um,
point.
Good enough.
I mean,
Fair enough.
my actual, like, my non-joke answer, like, I could joke about being like, I would like to be strong, but I would prefer to be a dex-based fighter than a strength-based fighter, so like that's fine. My real genuine answer for what I would want that Tiff has is she is a lot braver than I am. I know that she doesn't always act like she doesn't always speak as if she is brave, you know. But she voices her fears a lot, but when the going gets tough, she does a lot, and all really surprises me. Like in the ghost realm, like the way I would never be wrestling
Yeet a
with
Ricker.
ghosts and scooping up fingers and eating them, like the way I could never, like I would be hiding behind Tiff the whole time, like I could never. And then what I wish Tiff could learn from me, um, I wish I have a pretty strong just like acceptance of myself. Maybe not all the time, but I'm pretty most of the time pretty comfortable with who I am. And I've sort of accepted that I don't have to be any particular kind of woman to be a woman, like I don't have to be. I'm a lot further in that self-acceptance journey than Tiff is. So I want her to have the spiritual journey that I've already gone through about it. And she'll get there. But yeah.
Yeah. We hope for Tiff. Mhm. Oh, I
I can't hear
can't
you,
hear you,
Sakaya.
Sakaya.
You can't hear me.
Now we
Oh, there you
can.
are.
Now I can.
It's weird. I wasn't muted. I don't know. I feel that's very much a player character question,
Yeah. Okay.
which I'm happy with.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you from Kieran. Um, They say, I love the music in Black Teeth very much. It seems to really fit the show. So my question is, did you commission it or did you find an existing suite? I think that's the right word. I am also
Mhm.
not sure on that word, which worked so well.
So yes, we commissioned a composer.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Maxi Gertling did the music for us. It came about. There's a show that I got involved in called Albion Absi's Geographical Almanac, and Jack, who plays Tristan Ellis, is actually part of that crew. They kickstart these kind of like location, sort of system agnostic locations, and every now and then they'll run an actual play based in one of the locations to kind of showcase it. So I had the opportunity to do that, which was really enjoyable. And through that, we became aware of like the music that they were using for their Kickstarter. So this is really, really good. And I was scouting around at the time, so I sent them a message, and they put me in touch with Maxi. And Emma and I had this thing that we kind of wanted the music. It costs a lot of money to build a show,
Sure
so
does.
we couldn't
Mm-hmm.
afford soundtracks for Black Teeth, soundtracks for Blood and Lyrium. So we wanted something that would work well for both of them,
Mhm.
act as almost like a sort of transmissions theme for now. And so I went to Maxi. We kind of discussed this, and we mentioned that we were doing this Dragon Age Blood and Lyrium, and she went crazy. She's such a huge Dragon Age stan.
Yeah.
It was absolutely
Nice.
bonkers. And Maxi went way above and beyond
It was
what
so good.
I was paying for.
Yeah.
She loved it so much that she gave multiple versions. I basically commissioned her to do like a 3-minute theme tune. You know, she
Yeah.
probably gave me
Mhm.
about half an hour's worth of music.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
That's amazing.
yeah, absolutely incredible. And I can't rave enough about when like us, a lot of us creatives, very down on our own work, very sort of self-critical. She sent these things through, going, "Oh, I don't know about this, I don't know about that." And I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
The music is
Absolutely
so
incredible.
perfect.
It is.
It's
It is.
great.
And it fits both, and it really is. It's got the perfect kind of mood. It was exactly what we wanted. I was completely blown away when we were getting the little snippets. It's great. It's wonderful.
I get it stuck in my head all the time. There was a
Yeah.
moment. Oh, what was it?
It's
I
the
can't
little
remember
guitar
what
licks.
this.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a moment where I can't remember what character or what the scene is, so please help me. But there was a mention of someone humming something. Oh, no, it was the Hamatan Devil. And I think it was Bronson saying like the dream that he was
Hum the name.
having, the hum in the name. And when you said like it was humming something, I thought it was gonna be like da na na. I was like, we're bringing the music in. It's coming full
I missed a
circle.
trick
I
there.
was, I was,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. But it worked out great. But I had that like, is that what's gonna?
That's so funny. It's like in
Um,
Baldur's Gate 3 where you go to the little music box and it plays the music that is the start of the game as well. It's like
So-
it's a
Absolutely,
thing. Yeah.
totally.
As you
I
just
love
mentioned that, I just want to kind of nerd out slightly as you brought up the Hamatan Devil. Hamatan was an old an archaic name for Northampton. There was a heat wave. The hottest heat wave prior to 1976 was the heat wave of 1808.
Mhm.
Wallace was the coroner in Northampton at the time.
Wow.
And the names Aitchison and sorry, not Wallace. Wasn't it? Wallace and Aitchison are the other two.
Marshall?
Marshall.
Thank you.
Marshall.
Marshall was the
Mhm.
coroner. Wallace and
Yeah.
Aitchison were also based in. They were people who lived in Northampton during that time, which is where Bryn's name came from. To
Yep.
feed that through. So yeah, sorry. It was just like there's.
It's great.
That is awesome. So let's see. We're gonna go a question from Ozian or Ozian Lev on Twitter.
It's Oshan. It's a Welsh, very
Oshan,
Welsh
so
name, and that's and he voices John White.
Mm.
Oh, excellent.
Yay, John.
Sorry, Oshan.
What up, bud?
So
I promise I'm nicer than Rachel.
um so this is another question for, I think, Sakaya, but I think also open it up to the group because it's a little bit more perhaps hearing it back. What is it like to play through the sessions, then go back retroactively, write scenes and dialogue for the episodes? And so I think for the cast, perhaps it's what is it like to record them and then hear them in kind of their final iteration?
Mhm.
That's a that's a really really interesting question actually. The big thing for me that like I suppose the one rule that I have is I never want to fabricate something new. So I have to stay true to what genuinely happened at the table. I'm not going to lie. There have been like, and I'm not just talking about Black Teeth. I'm talking about like even going back to previous podcasts and stuff I've done. That there have been a couple of occasions where something has changed for one reason or another. But generally, all I am really doing is giving a better kind of dramatized version of my GMing.
Mm.
And actually, it's a really good question to allow me to kind of pick into something else that I wanted to say. I wanted to find a point to say at some point. So we record the game, we play the game, and we would play it as you would play any actual play around the table with your friends, with one proviso that I've always said to the players: if you are not happy with a line and you want to just say it again, this is a podcast, and I can cut out the
Mhm.
previous line, and so we can kind of fine tune things a little bit that way. But generally, we're playing a game,
Mhm.
and in fact, that doesn't really happen very often, does it? I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's great.
So then I do a dialogue edit that you would do in any. Any editors out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. But a dialogue cut is basically where you create the pace of a piece, and you take the dialogue that is important to telling the story, and you put it in the order that is important if you're doing dramas, because sometimes you do chop things about. But the only difference that I'm doing is when I put my stuff in, I'm then re-scripting. So I listen to what I'm
Mhm.
saying, and that's where I could. So here's the one area that I do actually change things, if you like. I'm not changing, I'm just enhancing. I then
Right.
get to put in, because I now have an entire season recorded and I know what's coming up, that allows me the opportunity to drop in Easter eggs in ways that I couldn't do when I was GMing, because I don't necessarily.
Right.
So everything is true to what was playing out in that scene, but I'm able to kind of enhance it with just like little words and phrases that give a little bit of depth or a little bit of foreshadowing that
Mhm.
is hard to play. That's really, really the only difference. Um,
Yeah.
but this brings me to my point: is that we had maybe we'll talk about the NPC voice actors in a little bit. We had such incredible generosity from the community on this, and there are so many rich voices that really kind of bring this whole thing to life. But for me, enhances how absolutely incredible these players are, because they don't get the opportunity to have a script sent to them and sit in their recording studios and bang out like take after take. Everything that you hear them say was done pretty much first take live in a game,
Mhm.
in a game scenario. They're making that up on the spot as it's coming, and they don't sound at all out of place in these interlaced scenes with voice actors who weren't even in the same
Yeah.
room with them, who haven't even met them. It sounds like
Mhm.
genuine pieces of dialogue drama, and I cannot praise this team enough. They are the four best role players I've had the privilege of playing with.
Mhm. No, it really, particularly, I think the solo scenes, if you will, the scene with Beth and Tristan, it really sounds like they are truly playing off one another, which I think is like a testament to both Emma and Jack, like playing Tristan, because like you said, that a lot of the people who voice our NPCs, they don't get to like listened to it beforehand, so they are making choices that you can still, they're making such strong choices, you can still tell like it sounds seamless. Like it sounds like they're both in the room like with each other. You know, you see
Yeah.
have, I think of the scene with Anwin and Rachel, young Rachel, the essentially the what is it, what do I want to say, the interrogation kind of scene. Also, can I just give a personal shout out to Jill's reaction and the like, you've given me all the information I need, like you think you got information out of me, but I got information out of you, like that.
That's a killer line.
That's the
We
only thing
were
that, like, for Rachel that was scripted, were those like diary entry, like narration things.
Mhm.
sure.
But yeah, I will say
But
like the naturalness. It sounds so natural
Yeah.
between us who are in the game talking to Sakaya, and then voice actors who send in their stuff later. That it's just, it's so cool to still have that like rapport between the characters. There's a chemistry between the characters as well that was there while we were playing, obviously, because like we were playing off of each other. But the way that the
sure.
voice actors have been able to keep that just is so amazing to me, that when I go back and listen to it, it doesn't feel
Mhm.
foreign to me. It doesn't feel like anything new, but it is
Mhm.
like new enough that it's like, oh yeah, this wasn't the voice that I was hearing, but I genuinely forget that I didn't hear that voice while we were
Yeah.
playing, because it feels so similar. It feels the same. And it's
Right.
really, really cool.
Mhm.
It is really awesome. I think for me, in terms of like us recording and then going back to it, I normally have a difficulty watching stuff back that has me in it because I have dysphoria about the sound of my voice, and normally it gives me like pretty big ick. But I think what's a testament to the Discord is that, to the Discord, sorry, the podcast. I know what I'm saying. God, it's late. Yeah, is that I it is still new and interesting, and I'm hearing things that I haven't heard before, and the editing is great, and the soundscapes keep it engaging, so that I'm distracted from something that I normally really have a big reaction to. So it's I think a testament to the quality of the podcast that I can overcome something that has been a big problem for me for decades, and like still able to do it. So I think that's really cool.
Mhm.
One thing I want to add to that, obviously, the voice actors do a really phenomenal job, and it is really, really cool to go back and listen, especially like, obviously, I'm going to resonate the most heavily with the Tiff scenes because that's who I'm playing. But when
Right.
the first time I heard a scene with Heidi and John in it, like with the voice actors, like I immediately feel so attached to and love for those voice actors, because they immediately are like, that's my werewolf family right
Me
there,
with
and
Paul
they
and his voice
immediately
actor, I'm just
are.
like,
Oh, the
I
first
have
time I
formed a
heard
Yeah, it's
Paul's
my
voice
parasocial
actor, I
relationship.
NPC.
was like, "How do you sound so trustworthy so immediately?" Like with like I feel like
There's a
I was
warmth
like,
Yeah.
I
to
knew
that,
nothing about the
yeah.
Order of Saint Bede, but I'm like, this guy's a
And
good
Bryn.
guy. Like I can trust Paul. Like
The
you
Yeah.
voice
know.
actors did do a good job because like we knew when we're interacting with these NPCs the sort of vibe and energy that they had and how we had to react to them emotionally in a scene. And it was
Sure.
great to hear the voice actors do it so perfectly. Like me and Kate obviously had a certain type of reaction to kind of, but like actually the one that really hit me was and again
I'm gonna
it's
tell her this.
it's what Jack does with Tristan, because like
Oh.
what I like about that is that he sounds super charming, and like the scene
Mhm.
felt natural, because like doing scenes that aren't actually real and feeling chemistry is one thing, but like doing something where it's flirting, where it's actual chemistry you have to listen to, and it didn't feel weird, like it felt natural. But it's the fact that he has that like tough voice, and I know that like especially us here in the UK, we know what we know what that voice means, right? We know what that accent means, and it was just it fit the character so perfectly, that I was like, yes, perfect.
And I will say, as
Mhm.
someone who, like, I don't like listening to romance, like,
Yeah.
stuff, like romance storylines, I was able to listen to that whole thing minus like cringing at what was the nickname that it was.
Oh, he was calling her
Sweet
Sweet Pea.
Pea.
Yeah.
Sweet Pea. Every time I heard that, I was just like, but other
Yeah,
than that,
but that's like,
other than that,
that's good because he uses it in a way that, because we, like, it was alluded to during the scene that he's emotionally manipulative, so he's trying to like create
Mhm.
a certain atmosphere by using the name for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great.
But
That
like
reaction was good.
One thing
it was just
I
I could
definitely
listen
want
to
to
the scene
add.
and I
Oh,
enjoyed
sorry.
it.
Yeah,
That's it.
Sorry.
yeah,
That's
I
it.
really want to add to drive home, like, obviously the voice actors did a phenomenal job of inserting themselves into those scenes and making it feel natural, but I really feel as if Sakaya, you're doing yourself a discredit by not, like, I want to gas you up a little
Yeah.
bit with how well you embodied those characters when you were doing those scenes. Like, yes, you tidied up some of the scripting or whatever, you know, you gussied it up a little bit, but when we're there in game with you, we feel like we are with those characters because you know who they are really, really well. You are very different. I'm not talking to Sakaya in those moments. I'm talking to those characters. And if we weren't able to have that realistic, you know, we're not acting off of the voice actors. You know, I don't know whether you send them our dialogue or not to listen to, but we have the benefit of interacting with those characters because you're there being them.
yeah.
And you do a phenomenal job. I love the voice acting, especially with the, you know, they do a fantastic job, but I do miss the
Yeah.
Sakaya edit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not very good.
That's what
Like
was
Emma,
real to me at the time. You know?
I know.
I'm not very good at taking praise, but I know I can believe you. I can take this in, and thank you very much, because I'll tell the audience something now. I know when I first pitched this idea to the players, they were not happy. They were like,
It wasn't that we
they were
weren't
like,
happy.
"What?
We were
I
like, "Are
don't
you
know how that's going to work." And I
sure?"
can't remember what I first played you. Was it a Tristan
Yeah.
clip?
It might
It
have
was a
been
Tristan
Tristan or
clip,
John
yeah.
and Heidi.
It
John
was
and
definitely
Heidi was the
John and Heidi
the
was
earliest ones were
later.
like
full
Magicel did.
scenes.
Yeah, I cannot remember, but I got one of the early tests in, cut the scene together, sent it back to them,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh, okay, that's gonna work."
Yeah. Well, because you
Um,
worry that it's going to lose the chemistry that we know
Yeah.
was in the scene, and not having gone through the process. What I'd like to know, I guess, a question for you, Sakai, is the process of, like, how much do you give them? Because it's clear you must give them absolutely incredible direction. They've done an incredible job, so obviously there's praise on that side. But you must be giving them stuff that is facilitating how natural that feels. So I'm curious about that process.
Okay, all right. So I'll try and bust it. I am so pleased that I've added this element to Black Teeth because I think it elevates it, and I think it gives it something extra that a lot of actual plays out there don't have, or especially these kind of like audio drama versions of actual plays. But I'm not going to pretend it doesn't like ramp up the time. And this is a very minimal estimate, but around probably about 300 hours of editing, I think, went into season 1 of Black Teeth. And one of the things that really ramped that up was that I was cruising along and then I had this idea of doing the NPCs. And just to get tangent away from your question very briefly, Emma, that how it came about was the Tristan role. Shall I give a big like season 5 spoiler to the audience here, everyone? Being told no.
A hint, maybe. But not the big
Okay, all right.
spoiler.
The hint is that I knew something that I had an idea for something, and approached a voice actor about it. I was like, what? How would you feel about doing this? And they immediately sent me. This was Jack. They immediately sent me some Tristan lines back over Discord, just like seconds later, and I was like,
Very good.
Very good.
I was like, okay, that is Tristan. That's
Yeah.
insane. And so then I was like, okay, well, if we're going to do this little thing, the audience are getting a bit of a hint here. Then it kind of makes sense for you to do the voice in season 1, Jack, because otherwise it's going to sound silly.
Right.
And this is what did I say earlier about, I had like this sort of 3 arc idea and now it's 10 seasons or whatever. I can't keep it. I was like, well, if we're going to voice Tristan, that's going to sound a bit weird, isn't it? Just like one. So maybe I should voice all of the
I
all of
guess
the
I'll
main
just have
characters.
to.
And then it was like,
uh-huh.
so, and I was genuinely just going to do like the main ones, like Anwin Jones, Tristan Ellis, Bryn Aitchison, Paul Thomas, that kind of thing. So I approached Jordan Actual Play UK, said, could you help me kind of advertise this? He was amazing. He voices Paul Thomas, by the way. He created an entire channel on their site for us to kind of like bring in voice actors, and I was absolutely inundated. I was like completely. So in a way to like try and like facilitate these people that were interested, I ended up basically going, okay, well, how many NPCs are there in this? Oh, 40. Okay, fine, let's make. And so a huge amount of time went into scripting. So now I'm getting to your question, Emma. Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, this is a fascinating insight.
As I narrate, as I script and like my narration, I was now adding a whole element onto that by scripting these character parts. But I couldn't only write the lines that I had to send to the actors. I had to write your lines as well. So I'm scripting, Bethan talking to Tristan, and then I'm adding in stage notes and formatting it because I'm sending it to a voice actor and they want to be able to read this thing. So I created 40 scripts. Sent them all out, and this is where, like, testament to the voice actors who did these NPCs, because almost all of these, not only did they not have the other actor to bounce off, they read this in a room just from a script. So all of my stage notes had to be like as accurate as I could get them to help them with intonation and meaning. And very, very rarely did they come back with something that I was just like, oh, that really doesn't gel now. So I got a couple of pickups done. The only 2 instances were the final Heidi and Tiff scene in episode 12 and the Anwin and Rachel scene in episode 11. Because Jack had actually, I would have done the Tristan and Bethan scene as well, but Jack had actually done those lines like, wait, because he was one of the first voice actors I was talking to. They were already done. I actually got them on call, and I played Rachel and I played Tiff to bounce off, because they were such important scenes and there was a lot going on in them that we discussed, like intonation and all that kind of stuff. And that was the only time where they were bouncing off like another voice. But that was, has that answered it? That was, it was very long-winded, but
it was great. Fantastic.
They were incredible, and I'm so glad I've put that stone on my back now for 9 more seasons, because
Great stuff.
Let me let's have another question from Kester, who plays Bronson. I have an experience from a recorded game where an emotional scene was quite shocking to listen back to. My memory of playing it was very different to how it affected me in the edited version. Is this something that you can relate to, and do you hear your characters in the same way as you felt them in the game?
I actually think when I listen back to the scene on the beach, I know that when I was recording that, I was tearing up and actually really emotional, and I didn't know if it would. She sounds calmer actually in the recording, so I must have masked it. You know, when you could tell, you can hear it sometimes
exactly
in someone's
what
voice.
I was thinking. 'Cause
Yeah,
I mentioned it earlier that I was so emotionally
At the
distraught
beach?
by that
Yeah.
scene,
yeah,
but it doesn't really come through in the
It's-
recording.
yeah.
And it's not like, I guess it's not really anything we did wrong. It's just, it's
No,
a very internal
it's
feeling.
just the
didn't
way that
really
the
come
audio
through.
sounds. Because
Yeah.
like it was when she was talking out just to the ocean and started to reflect on her grandmother and wondering how her grandmother felt, and I was like teary-eyed and felt, and I was
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't know, I was worried it might like mess up how it sounded, or like it was, in my mind it
Sure.
felt a certain way. So like listening back to it, I was like, oh, actually, it's a calmer reflection in a way. Like you can tell it's really emotional, but I knew behind the scenes there was like, you know, wobbly lip moments. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Kind of the same for me. In the Heidi Tiff, the whole solo scene on the top of the mountain in episode 12,
Mm-hmm.
I got I got really choked up there. Kind of caught me off guard,
Yeah.
honestly. How emotional I got during the recording of that, and I decided in the moment to just like lean into it and let it go, and just sort of like,
Yeah.
if it was bad audio, I could re-record it.
Yeah.
But like I just wanted to let it go, and listening back to it immediately just puts me back in the same
You
place. Like
revisit the emotions, yeah.
I feel like there are some scenes throughout the show where I can keep a distance from it, and just like when Tip is scared and stuff, like I'm laughing, like I'm not,
Yeah.
whatever. But like that scene in particular, that the
It's funny to
finale
go
has a
back.
special place in my heart,
It's
and it
powerful.
immediately puts me in the place again.
The the drowning scene is really like the main thing I can think of for season 1. There is one in season 2 that I'm very, very curious to hear, because I know how I was feeling and how Rachel was feeling very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm really, really excited to hear that when it does eventually come out. I believe it'll be quite late in season 2 though.
Yeah.
Um,
That's great.
but
I,
it just I
It's
do
episode
think
12.
it is I think it's the final episode. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I I did say earlier that I felt like the emotion didn't really come through with like the whole drowning scene, but I do think it does come back when we leave the ghost realm and Rachel
Mhm.
is having that conversation with Paul, where like
Yeah.
you could hear my voice shake a little bit
Mhm.
as I'm
You could.
speaking, and you can feel those emotions of like, oh my god, like we did it.
Yeah.
Because like as a player, I knew I was like, this is not something Rachel will ever be like morally okay with doing, like
Yeah.
crossing these boundaries, but it's like kind of like we
Right.
have to do it. Whereas as a player, we're
Right.
like, this is a quest, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
So
we get to visit the
I
ghost
love that.
realm.
it was quite nice to see that that did come through, and it had an impact that I was proud of, because that's a scene that I think of quite frequently, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. And again, the voice actor did such a good job, because it's like it sounds so natural, like there's a chemistry there.
Mhm.
Can I tease
Yeah.
that question out a
I
bit?
oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, for sure. I don't want to take it away from. So remember your question, because I know what people
Mhm.
like us are like, where we forget what we were going to say. I sort of on the flip side, coming away from like emotional, heartfelt moments. I am someone, because I'm ace arrow, and I don't ever think of myself as a flirty person. But I've been told sometimes when I'm especially if like I'm the GM, that it actually reads in a very different way. And like towards the end of the scene with Tristan, especially when I'm like laughing when I'm going out of the kitchen, I was like, okay, that sounded a lot flirtier than I anticipated. I was like,
As
okay.
someone who has been on the other side when you're flirting with them as an
Yeah.
NPC, you can turn it on. You can be there.
Yeah. I learned that about myself, because I don't have to hear myself. I remembered I've read
Oh,
a line
sure.
to someone where I looked directly in the camera and said something, and they were like, "Oof." It was during the ATAB over at Girls Around These Worlds, and our producer said they felt flustered.
Oh.
So that
I
was
have to
a
say,
fascinating thing to learn. Mhm.
as someone who is very clued into our giggly gutter witch and the
Mm.
very specific, you have such a specific, I don't know if it's on purpose at all, or if it's just something that came about
Mm.
like coming out of just being the character, but Bethan has such a very particular kind of giggle that I just find so endearing. I love her so much, and the way that like it morphed a bit in that scene with
Mhm.
Tristan. It's not unrelated. She's still being her, but there's just something different enough about it that
Yeah.
it's like it at this point, not knowing enough about like their past or about Bethan in general, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, is this like a like it's closely related enough that it's like, oh, is this just like a little bit of an indication of like how the relationship is, like, is there some intuition there happening, or is this like a prior to, like, because this is an old fling,
Mhm.
is this kind of like a bit of a more how it used to be, and then like she's grown into it more, and the little giggle, and I don't know, I have no idea if you did that on purpose. I enjoy it very, very much.
I don't think it was intentional. I have like sometimes when you play a character and you the way that you do tonal shifts in the way that you talk and your mannerisms can sometimes change. At least I try to, because mostly what I do is GMing, so you have to be able to differentiate the NPCs that you're
Right.
being through tone shifts. So I knew that I was giving her a sort of I didn't intentionally give her a giggle, but I'm glad that it translated. And I think when it
Very
came to
good.
Tristan, it was just more we were seeing a side to her because she's multifaceted and she does like some things may feel light and bubbly, not naive, but like, you know,
Sure.
a kind of innocence to it. And then realize like, oh no, she yeah. Yeah.
Ah.
There's another side to her. Sakaya, you were gonna say something.
I was just going to tweeze that question out a little bit to ask a more general thing along those lines. It's like, do you get like, is there a distance from how you remember playing the game to when you listen to a recorded or edited actual play like that? Can you listen to your characters and kind of have that detachment from them and go, or are you still very much there, you know, in the headspace?
I think there is like a detachment, especially with like those heavier scenes that we talked about, like us personally experiencing like a lot of like heavier emotions there. But like, also, like I said earlier, that because everything just meshed so well, and it is like your words that we are hearing in the voice actors' voices. It's just it's still, it doesn't feel super different from when we were
No.
playing. It's just I'm able to sit and experience the whole thing as an audience member this time. So to me, it's not a huge distance. It's enough for me to like listen and be like interested as somebody with ADHD. If I know where a story's going, I have a very hard time like paying attention to it. Like I can't rewatch movies unless I'm like really into it, like special interest into it. So like I am able to listen to the podcast and like just thoroughly be
Yeah.
entertained. So there is that distance there, but it also like I can remember how I felt while I was playing it.
I remember how I played with a lot of it. We've frequently, especially you and me, Jill, have spoken about how sometimes you'll get into the weeds of a really deep emotional moment and you come out of that scene and you're like, I don't remember what just happened in the last 10 minutes
Yeah.
because you it's
just
almost like
dissociate.
completely blacking out. You're so into the role playing that you going back
Yeah.
and try to reflect on it's harder. So being able to listen back to it actually
There's a lot
is
more details I can pick up on and
Yeah.
stuff, especially like
Yeah.
I tend to space out a lot, so sometimes I'll have to ask like, "Oh, can you repeat that? I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention." So like there's a lot of stuff that I just do miss because like I clue in at least enough that like I'm like, "Oh, okay, wait, this is like starting to turn to me and I need to interact with the scene." So like going back and listening to it, I'm like, especially like the research episodes and stuff, I'm just like, yes, I'm now getting this information for the first time as an audience member.
Yeah, big time.
There is something about like hearing it all together. I was just listening to that one this morning because it was I was telling Sarah when I listened through the last episode, it was so perfect because it was one of those finales that immediately made me want to go back and re-listen to it. I almost said rewatch because that's how it feels, but like re-listen to it from the beginning because it's there's all these ties, there's all these things. I think
A million Easter eggs as well. There's so much
There's
hidden
Easter
shit
eggs.
in there. Like,
Do you know how many times
Absolutely.
I was listening back to it and I'm like, oh, Sakaya, you bitch. Like,
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, now I see what that is.
100%.
But there's also scenes that we've recorded off table where it's like solo scenes where we as players don't know what happened in those scenes. So nobody knew what happened in all of those like little solo moments because we weren't there for it. So we are listening to that new. And there's quite a few
Yeah.
interactions where like we as players are like, oh my God, I just listened to that scene.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I have another question. I think we've talked a lot about player characters and non-player character interactions. So this is a question again from Lenny. any favorite character or NPC interactions? And I, as you know, just having gone through this, we talked a lot about NPCs, and absolutely feel free to include them. But were there any favorite like player character interactions between yourself and for Sakaya too?
I liked Rachel and Rianne interacting with each other as like the two humans of the group, like the least supernatural of the group, I guess. There's like a couple of scenes where they kind of like pair off, especially like when going to question people in the houses around the like the graveyard.
Oh yeah.
I like those interactions that we've had. Obviously, like with Rachel and Tiff, there's like a heavy backstory there that we haven't really gotten into. Not on recording yet, anyway. So that there is just like a lot of. I feel like, I mean, I know the information, but I feel like as an audience member, you can kind of tell that there is a lot more there that we're not talking about. And that will slowly like become revealed. And in terms of like interactions with like NPCs, like with each other, I had an idea, but it just left my brain. So you'll have to come back to me.
Okay. Fair enough.
I quite liked when Tiff opened up to Bethan about like, what if you have a thing and
Yes.
you tell someone and it ends up making
I
them
was
hate
just
you? And
thinking
Bethan
about
was
that.
like, well, you know, like if you die, then it just means you get to come back and haunt them and tell them anyway. Like I loved Bethan's advice to her, just being like actually really chill and not what you expect. It wasn't like a wholesome like, well, but maybe it was just like, look, just tell them what's the worst that could happen if they hate you. Are they really your friend? And also, if you die, then just come back and haunt them. And I that little interaction was fun, and I liked the little moments where it was like homey comfort, like because Tiff basically lives in that home as well, and so just kind of seeing that more
Right.
domestic side to things was actually really really cool.
Yeah, I love Tiff and Bethan's like whole friendship, whole like siblinghood almost. Like I just I every time we get to do it, just like an us scene, I really enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's real good. I wanna do more going forward. I don't know.
Teaching you how to make the little talismans and stuff. Listen, it's cute. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was very fun.
Yeah,
Tiff
helping
and
Tiff
Bethan's
get in
relationship
touch
is
with
so
her new
cute.
supernatural.
Yeah.
Tiff and Bethan, I think they just have such a good rapport. Like they do have like a really good chemistry, just as friends. It's just they seem to mesh together really, really well, and it makes sense that Tiff would be spending so much time at Bethan's cottage and like living together.
Yeah.
I do think that's really nice.
Yeah.
I also really enjoy Rian any Rian NPC interaction
Yes.
is just so good.
100%. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, okay, I remember now. But you said it, so
It's just so powerful. Oh man. And Rian, I feel like Rian's NPCs are really, really good. Like obviously I have a you know, my werewolf you know, we're whatever, but I really feel like Rian gets some of the best like individual NPCs. Like they're so all over the place. They're so interesting. Some of them are so hot.
I mean, her character is based on informants, so I guess she has that kind of
they're
like
very like strong characters that she interacts with.
Yeah.
And very different people too, which I think is like part of a thing with playing a face character is you kind of get to see like, and it's funny too because for a face character, I feel like a lot of people play into kind of the chameleon-esque sort of thing with it, but Rianne doesn't have that. Like Rianne is Rianne, and she interacts with everyone the way that she interacts with it. Yeah, like you for a very highly charismatic character, like she can turn it on, sure, but like you see what you get and you get what you see. Like she is very like she is very straightforward. She is very like straight.
You'll see that in season 2.
So good.
I will say I there's a scene between Rianne and Bethan in season 2 that I really I hope people really enjoy because it was nice just to see that bonding because we don't get to see Rianne bonding in an emotional way overly much with the other player characters, so it was nice to kind of have that little moment. So it's something to look forward to for season 2. It was good.
you remember what you were going to say, Jill?
It was the
I don't-
Rhiannon NPCs
It was
thing. Yeah.
about I think Rhiannon Morgan's scene, super
Mhm.
great. Also Rhiannon Gethin.
Yeah.
I have such a love for Gethin Jones. Like I don't know
Yep.
how to explain.
I
That
love
little-
cheeky
that little
chappies.
scamp
Yeah.
It's just such a cute, easily
Ira
lovable character.
laughs as Gethin so well in that scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any Rhiannon interaction is just so delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So good. So good.
I think the only thing I can add to that really, because running the game and editing the game, and there are just so many kind of PC on PC moments that I adore, and I could probably talk for too long about it. But I think the thing to say is that what's nice, having recorded 2 seasons now already, these are not static characters. These relationships evolve and they change. Emma's already hinted at like a scene with Bethan and Rhiannon, but all of these, when you come to them in season 1, there are these kind of like partisan lines, and one of the things that I want to mention just very, very briefly, there's a beautiful conflict that Emma and Jill have to deal with Bethan and Rachel being from 2 very, very different worlds,
Mm-hmm.
that they handle extremely well, that comes out at kind of sort of like little emotional flashpoints, and it's a big testament to kind of like how much this story and how much these characters affect you, because those
Mhm.
moments sometimes affect the players as well. You
Mhm.
really imbue these characters. But all of that is constantly moving and evolving, and I think that's going to play so nicely into the aging of these
Yeah.
characters, because you'll see how these sort of lines and
Mhm.
allyships and everything will kind of alter and change and deepen.
And it is just natural, isn't it? Because I like, as someone who remembers well what it is to be in your mid-20s, and how you think and feel about the world, and then the way you feel once you hit your 30s, and you're like, oh damn, like, yeah, I thought it was real grown up. And so, and things that feel really important to you when you're at that age, and then you realize as you get older those things aren't important. The things that are important are XYZ, you know, and you do shift your thinking on a lot of things, and I think that is really cool, and that's going to be what's nice about, like you say, seeing them aging and seeing that sort of shifts in the things that become your priorities and how you interact with the world and how you feel about yourself as well. I think that's one thing. Like we could talk about how they interact with the NPCs and interact with each other, but like how they feel about themselves, their place in the world, the skills and the things that they bring, and so that is also going to shift as well, I think.
I will say you do see a shift in how Rachel, like her relationship with herself from season 1 to season 2. Like I can definitely speak on that one. So I am excited to see it for everyone. Tiff accept herself.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. No. I'm just kidding. Get there.
I just have a few more questions and then one more to wrap up, and I think we will wrap up quite soon. Um, for me personally, as someone who was raised with a car dad, from the get-go, the Red Cortina was basically a character in and of itself.
Yeah.
Where did the Red Cortina come from? Like, where did it? The mystery behind that. Where did the Red Cortina come from?
Well, you see,
Come
I'm
from, where did
incapable
it
of creating a
go?
character without the drive skill. So
Yep.
I
Awesome.
I as a person just have such a almost like spiritual connection with driving, because I very much like being alone and in my head. It's almost meditative for me. So that is something that's like
Same.
I am very, very connected to. So all of my characters kind of subsequently have that. And so we knew that Rachel had a drive skill, so she probably owned a car. And I think Psychiatrist like sent me a message one day. It was just like, okay, what kind of car do you think Rachel would have? and I was like, oh shit, I have to go look up cars that were in the UK in 1976, and it's probably not going to be brand new because that's too expensive.
Sure. Hmm.
So I think I ended up choosing a car that was like popular because I ended up finding like so many different articles that were like the most popular cars in the UK during this time period. Um, and so that was listed, I think, as like the number one for a certain, like, it was just a little bit before the time period we're playing in. And so I was like, that's perfect, honestly. And the picture I saw was bright red, and I was like, does it fit with like the man in black thing? Or but we talked about changing the color, but I think red just was such a striking color for that car that it couldn't be anything else.
Right. And I think it's kind of I mean, because in the flashback, Rachel is wearing a lot of red, like
Yeah.
I think that
Maybe it's
she's
her favorite
red
color.
is red is kind of like I think it's a nod to, it was, at least for me, my first indication. Once I knew that it was, Rachel's car, I was like, there's a backstory, like there's something that's not, this is not a Order of St. Bede issued car.
No, it's
And
not.
it
It is
shows
Rachel's
something.
car.
Yeah, and it shows something of Rachel's like personality, and that like this is the type of car that she would choose.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I just want to add this. I've told most of you this, but when I was first listening to the podcast, I thought it was Quartina, like a cool way of saying four people. So when it was like like they get out of the Quartina, I can't remember what the line was, but anyway, it was something. It's like
The Quartina
you see
pulls
the
up outside.
Quartino
Yeah.
coming over the hill, and I thought it was the four girls like strutting down the street. I don't know.
Like a
It's
quartet.
exactly, exactly. I was like, that's a cool way to say four people.
I'm so glad you
It's
brought the Cortina up though, because it is the fifth Beatle, and
yes.
yeah, and my dad is also a car dad, and so much of my information comes from just like talking to him at the dining table, because he, without even looking at anything, just knows like the month and year that they were made between and ending and all the rest. So I already know like how long its life expectancy is, and when like what season it's not likely to be
Yeah.
still with us. Yeah.
Potentially
Almost
saying
lost
goodbye
it
to
with
the
that
Cortina.
critical failure on the driving.
That scene was amazing. That was the drive. I was like, because I'm just like, I'm a little baby action movie person. I love Die Hard unironically. And yeah, I just I love that kind of thing.
Yeah, we saw some mean skills from Rachel on that.
Hmm. I was looking at these questions, and I brought us back to something that you mentioned earlier. What is, Sakaya, the mechanic that you got wrong in season one? Because it doesn't seem like.
So basically NPCs don't roll. So in many
Oh.
scenes, there's a lot of oppositional rolls going on, but you always just roll against their base score. So we know what an
Oh.
NPC's like athletics is, and that is the CL. That's what they're trying to hit. And I was you know that thing that you do where you read a rule book from cover to cover and you know it all, but then you kind of like you don't go back, and that's unfortunately a Dungeons and Dragons hang up kind of thing, where
Sure.
you always
Yeah.
just revert to that kind of staple that we've grown up with. So it is something that I will correct, because I do want to play true to the rules, but I wasn't so upset. And the other thing is, it wasn't a mistake, but just think I haven't really leaned into yet, and I do want to, is that in Liminal, social conflict is the same as combat. You roll
Oh.
again, you roll charm and empathy and those kind of things, and they have mechanical effects. If an NPC beats you in a charm empathy roll or something, and you want to go against, if they're like, yeah, they you want to keep information from them even though they're charming it out of you. If you want to break that, then you're going to have to spend will. You have to roll d6 will to get away with it.
We saw that with Tristan and Beth,
Oh.
and
I
she
was gonna
ended up
say,
spilling a
yeah.
lot more because she didn't succeed at her role, so she felt very trusting and spilled an awful lot to him. So
He was trying to hit a CL 14 against his charm.
Yeah.
Yep,
Jeez.
Oh boy.
I did not succeed.
I mean, that's. I mean,
Couldn't do that even with double sixes.
Yeah, he's very
Yeah.
charming.
Oh my gosh. Also, just to talking about roles, when Tiff rolls the 20 in wolf form in the last
yeah.
like that. I was like, oh, I get it. The entire time when everybody's like, oh, she's so dangerous in her wolf form or whatever. Obviously, we know that Tiff is like trying to not do that, trying to not lean into the anger, and it's like she's such a protective being. Like, why? Like, stop being mean. And then we finally see the wolf form. We finally see how big and terrifying it could be. And then the 20, and I was like, excuse me. We've been routinely rolling like 10s.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of a hint in like episode 1 when she's doing something like she's just like carrying the body away or whatever.
Yeah,
And
she just,
I
like,
rolled like
slings it
a
over her
3 on the
shoulder.
dice, and it was like an 11 or a 12 total. And it was just like, but even then, like that doesn't feel. It's like, okay, like logically, I know that that's crazy, but to hear a 20 in a system where you roll 2d6. It's just like, what are you?
Yeah.
Wild.
Actually,
Well, and
what
like,
are you talking? Are you playing a different game? Are you rolling a
yeah, it
d20? Like,
literally
what's
feels
happening?
like that.
Like,
Feels like you rolled different dice. And as like it being like you said, episode 1, I'm not familiar with the system or like how it works or anything like that. And so it's like, oh, okay, you're used to, again, D&D is often what people reference, and so you're used to modifiers, and it's like, oh, what would that be? A 3 to get to an
it's like a
11?
plus
Don't make me
9.
do math on camera.
Plus 8, plus 9. I can't remember
But,
whether it was an 11 or a 12.
yeah, but it's like okay, that doesn't feel so crazy. And then you start getting like the rest of you start experiencing learning more about the game as
Well,
the
to put it into
game goes
context,
on.
I can kind of tell you the basics of how it works is when they allocate their skills at the beginning, they have skill caps of 4. So the most you can put in your athletics is 4. And every point that you put into a skill is your dice modifier. So if you have an athletics of 4 and you're rolling athletics, then you're adding 4 to it. So to be adding 8, 9, you can see all the other like traits and skill builds that are going into it.
Right.
It's like all
Yeah.
of the bonuses that Rachel has towards awareness, which also becomes initiative. She has an extra bonus for initiative when we do awareness rolls for that. So like I think I rolled like a double 1s and I ended up getting like a 7 for initiative or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like she gets a +6 basically to initiative, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have anything like that. My numbers are all pretty low and normal.
Yeah, but when you stab something, you stab it good.
I stab something.
You can do
I stab
magic.
real
good.
I can
stab
do
good.
What
one
you
type
do
of
have is a
magic.
ward, yeah. That just,
All I have is a ward. Because it's not even like a mage where you have multiple spells. I can do wards, and that is either on me or on a thing, and that's it. But I love her anyway. It's great, and the
I didn't
dagger.
have anything. I just exploded all of the enemies in the
Yeah.
entire season.
I've just killed almost everything in this game.
Yep. Yep.
I almost feel, at least after playing Ariga Stars with you, I almost feel like that's almost an Emma thing and not quite. I feel like that is a commonality between some of your characters. And watching Alien.
Watching Alien, well, Alien, I was playing a gunner, so like I was out there
Sure.
to murder things with guns. And
Same.
I had a
Whether
twitchy,
they deserve
for
it
half
or
of it.
not.
well, touchy trigger finger because I've seen Xenomorphs before. So he was like, "Oh, I've got a fever and I've got a pain in my chest," and I was like, "Nope."
Bam. That was so good. Oh.
But yeah, no, my characters. Because the thing is, it's always like because it is happenstance, and the thing is, when you're a GM, you can't always predict who's going to get that killing blow because everyone's chipping away at them. So it really is luck of the draw about when you tip it over. And it just so happens to be that my luck is like, so when I'm a GM, I get to be the thing you're combating, and when I'm a player, apparently I just keep murdering.
Killing everything, yeah.
But I play precious beings that aren't murderers. Like Roach was my only person who was like, hell yeah, let's kill things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I have our last question, I think, of the Q&A is going to be from Torin, who has been hanging out in our chat. Hi, Torin.
Hi, Doran.
And I think it will be, do you have a specific thing that your characters taught you as a person that you carry forward with you? And I think for Sakaya, is there an NPC in particular who taught you something?
Or one of us, because we're so great.
Or one of the
Yeah.
players, absolutely.
It's a hard question.
For me,
Yeah.
when you are a caretaker and a caregiver and a people pleaser, it is important to find a way to care for yourself. And I think that's a big takeaway that
Yeah, that's
I think
nice.
a lot of people who are that way inclined, me and Sakaya, that you know, it's difficult to like, because you know, it is not often that people will think to look after the person who's normally caregiving,
Right.
because they always seem so happy and full of love, you know. It's just a thing, and so it is important to look after yourself and not pour from an empty cup. That's true that lots of people need to learn that lesson for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, there you are.
what?
Oh, you were muted for a second.
Oh, it's
Sorry.
probably Zoom doing its thing. I don't know if you heard my cat yelling at me.
I did.
I did. It's very cute. That was exactly when your mic came back on.
Thank you, Hex. You fixed it. But I think I learned that it's okay to question the status quo and to challenge it because, like Sakaya said, Rachel is kind of this catalyst for this Order of Saint Bede. As I'm going to cover her up using the litter box. That's the only place I can put it. Sorry. But yeah. So she didn't come into it with like the intent of like changing things or like being this catalyst, but because of the nature of who she is, she just wasn't accepted and inadvertently becomes it. So I think like it's not really it's hinted at a little bit in the way that she behaves, especially around the other orders of the other members of the Order of Saint Bede, that she carries herself a little bit differently, like how she expects them to expect her to be like she's like, okay, I need to be this way to be respected, but by the end of season 1, Bren is like, well, no, like you as you are kind, I'm glad that you are in the order. So I think I've kind of learned a little bit about that from her.
That's awesome.
What I've learned from Tiff, and maybe some of these lessons are still sinking in, but I think what I take from Tiff is that, you know, Tiff, something that always struck me as playing Tiff is that she really affects the situation, like literally just by being there or like just by existing in a scene. Like a very like she's the earth element there. Like her presence affects the plot in so many ways. Like obviously, you know, she's the werewolf, so like there's that. But like there's so many situations where just her personality or her, you know, she doesn't know anything, but she'll have her crazy guesses are right half the time, or you know, like
She got
literally
the
just like
intuition.
her presence can comfort people or like change a situation in a really positive way just by existing. And I think what I've learned from that is that like, you know, I always put a lot of pressure on myself to like, I'm not doing enough or I'm not contributing enough, or what I, you know, I focus on like my actions are not, you know, I really want, you know, this world is, there's a lot going on in the world and I, you know, I want to help, and I, you know, just always feel like I'm not doing enough. And I think Tiff is teaching me that sometimes there is a power to literally just being you, and sometimes that literally is all you need to do is just show up and be yourself, and that is sometimes exactly what the situation calls for, and you can't necessarily understand your own impact by being in it. It takes like looking back and reflecting and seeing later on like, oh, I, you know, I am enough, you know. Like,
Sakaya.
Am I the last one?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, well, very briefly, I'll mention an NPC. I'll give a little teaser to the audience. I'm not going to say anything here, but I think there is an NPC that has taught me that if the players aren't in the place that you think they might be in a scene, then NPCs can get away with crazy shit that you didn't realize was going to happen. So That's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Ominous.
I'm trying to
But-
think of what you're talking about.
Episode 3, baby.
Oh, yeah.
So
Mhm.
Hmm.
my characters, my beautiful players in this game have taught me. I'll get all deep and heavy here. When I ran a podcast for a long time, put a lot of hours in, held a full-time job, and I had burnout. I had a complete collapse, and the podcast fell apart because I couldn't trust anyone else to do things. I was a major control freak, and I still am. But this team are incredible, and I think the biggest thing about this is just like working with people who can carry you, and yeah, that is everything really in this, both in terms of like playing out the games and acting these characters on screen and doing stuff behind the scenes.
Hmm. Agreed.
All.
Yeah. Love you all too.
That's a great question to end on.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Torin. You're the best. Um, well, thank you all so very much for joining us for the live Q&A for season 1 of Black Teeth. Season 2 of Black Teeth Snow Song will be coming out very, very soon. So we're going to be having a little bit of a break, but then season 2 is on the way, currently in post-production. So
Hmm.
we'll see you again very, very soon. In the meantime, check out our Discord. We do have a Discord for audience members. We have Patreon. You can check us out on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky. We're on socials. We also do a live stream of a Dragon Age story, Blood and Lyrium, in which our very own Emma is the GM. And most, if not everyone here, is in it. I mean, other than me. And it's very great if you want to catch up. Those episodes are on YouTube. So thank you very much. We love you all. Thank you for joining us. And I love you all.
Love
Me
you guys.
too.
Bye.